Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to call the Thursday, if we could have everyone. If we could have your attention, please, in the back. Thanks so much. I would like to call the Thursday, April 28th, 2022, Peninsula School District Board of Directors meeting to order. If everyone could just quiet down, we've called the meeting to order. Thank you so much. This evening we have a very special guest with us to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to invite Hannah and Olivia Knight and their family to the platform, or the podium.
Ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. As we mentioned in our meeting last month, April is the month of the military child. And we didn't read the proclamation that we had voted in at the last meeting, but tonight I would like to read it as you guys are special guests to this end. Resolution number 22-01, April 2022, month of the military child. Whereas the Peninsula School District serves school-age military-connected children, and whereas military families in the Peninsula School District include men and women on active duty service in the Air Force, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard, and members of the Reserves and National Guard. And whereas the state of Washington, and therefore the Peninsula School District, is a member of the Interstate Compact on Educational Opportunity for Military Children, which addresses key issues encountered by military students, including enrollment, placement, attendance, eligibility, and graduation. And whereas military-connected children and their families move every 2 to 3 years, at an average of 6 school moves during a child's life, within the United States or abroad, disrupting academic routines and friendships. And whereas military-connected children provide unique and valuable insights on learning, friendship, service to others, and heightened national and global awareness. Now therefore be it resolved that the Peninsula School District Board of Directors and Superintendent of Schools recognize April 2022 as Month of the Military Child. And we encourage all within our community to show appreciation and honor our military students and their families. I'd like to invite Hannah and Olivia to share with us a little about what it means to be a military-connected child.
My children are very shy.
I'm not shy. I just don't know what to say.
So, I'm not sure if you can hear me. Sorry. So their dad was in the United States Navy submarines from 2015. And so they were very little when he was killed while in service. I know, it makes everybody cry. It's okay. We'll get through it together. It's okay. And so these are 2 of the 4 children impacted. So they were 7. The boys are a little bit older. Austin graduated from Peninsula High School during COVID. Woo! And Derek graduated the year before that. So we are just really thankful for not only what the military has given us, but what Peninsula School District and the community has given us every single day. So they moved a lot around Bangor and Silverdale, but definitely a lot of changing schools and a lot of learning new environments and new people and new everything that comes along with that. And so it makes military kids super resilient. They learn to really process very quickly, which is awesome. It gives them both a great sense of humor. This one will not speak, so just roll with that. She's my shy, quiet one. And so I think that is a lot of what the military families need and back in response to. And with this base, JBLM being the largest base in the country, you get a lot more than a lot of folks would get for military. So just know that military families truly do appreciate everything that you do and all of the time. And the teachers, y'all are just amazing. And so we're super grateful for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for that. So anything you want to add?
Good.
She's good.
All right, well, don't go away. We're going to have you come up here, and the board's going to come down and get a quick picture with you. We have the proclamation for you.
Thank you. Go that way.
stuck in between.
Okay, now for the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
All right, second?
Second.
It's been moved by Natalie, seconded by David. To approve the agenda, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion's carried, the agenda is approved. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda prior to the vote? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, second.
I'll second.
Moved by Chuck, seconded by Jennifer. To approve the consent agenda, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion's carried. The consent agenda has been approved. Now we'll move on to recognitions and celebrations, which is always fun. First up is Pioneer Elementary students. We have Principal Stephanie Strader here to start us off. Stephanie? And company.
I don't need to hold it like that. Let's see. There we go. Good evening, Board of Directors, Superintendent Barr, and community. This is awesome. All this red, these educators, right? These are the people. This is why we do what we do. I've learned to bring the little people because I don't want to talk, and they do a fantastic job of telling our story. But Miss Beatty put out some message about how can we bring students to school board to kind of share what's going on in our school. And so I reached out to some 2nd and 3rd grade students at Pioneer and some K-1 friends. Where's Crosby? There's Crosby. And so they're going to just share a little bit of learning that we've had this year at Pioneer Elementary. And then we've got the fabulous Miss Jen Wisner as well, who will give an introduction to the 2-3 project. So we're going to start with Mr. Towner, who is our innovation teacher, and his son Crosby, who is a K-1 student at our school. And they're going to tell you a little bit about Makey Makey and what it means to be a Pathfinder.
Okay. So Crosby and I are going to demonstrate. He wanted me to talk, but thanks for having us. I'm Justin Towner. I'm the Innovation Specialist at Pioneer. I'm fortunate to be able to roll out a lot of new resources and tools, 21st century skills for our students that we implement across the school, K-5. So we're going to show you really quickly. A Makey Makey is an invention kit. It was created by students at MIT. It uses circuitry and the science of electricity to build connections. So as Pathfinders, a lot of these 2-3 students just did this project. We have core competencies at Pioneer, things like empowered learner, collaborator, communicator, problem solvers. So as students, we talk a lot about how do we exhibit these, and we learn about what they are. So you're going to see, so Crosby's going to complete the circuit by connecting. Students had to make a conductive piece of artwork that would conduct electricity, that they could use their bodies to complete a circuit. They then coded in scratch coding a program that would randomly pull from different sounds that they would record. So then they had to write a poem, but they had to record 10 lines of a poem of what it means to be a Pathfinder. And then as they basically connected all of it together, it pulls from their poetry and creates a poem about what it means to be a Pathfinder. So Crosby, we'll do a couple lines for you.
Pathfinders are collaborators in our school, community, and world. Pathfinders learn in different ways. I see creative ways to solve problems. Pathfinders just like to have fun. Pathfinders just like to have fun. Pioneer Pathfinders for engaged citizens.
That's it. It's a fun way to bring a lot of different disciplines together.
And now I have some second and third graders here who did a whole unit on the town of Moncton, which is a local area. Rattlesnake Lake is what it's called now. And we use a driving question to get the kids to be curious and to want to explore the content area over a variety of different disciplines. And so this is one in particular where we integrated in math skills, we integrated in Mr. Towner with his 3D printing, we integrated in our art and tinkering teacher with some landscapes, and these kiddos here are going to tell you more about it.
Hi, my name is Brooke Baker, and I'm in 3rd grade at Pioneer Elementary.
Hi, my name is Abigail Goodall, and I'm a 3rd grader at Pioneer Elementary.
Hi, my name is Henry Blankenheim, and I'm a 3rd grader at Pioneer Elementary.
Hi, my name is Lincoln Manthe, and I'm a 3rd grader at Pioneer Elementary.
We would like to talk to you about how we use science to learn reading, writing, and math.
In this unit, we learned about how dams affect water flow and landscapes.
Ice Age and glacier moraines.
How the structure and properties of different Earth materials can affect water flow.
And how water can change the shapes and kinds of land quickly or slowly.
We answered this driving question: why did a town next to a mountain, aka the town of Moncton, flood after a dam was built on the opposite side of the mountain?
Ready?
Yeah.
We used art to illustrate our learning.
This mural is from our Moncton unit. We were trying to solve the mystery of how this town flooded and became Rattlesnake Lake when the Cedar River Dam was built. This is the dam, and this is the town.
We had to read and research about the town. Then we wrote down our thinking, and we made claims. The claim is... the water went underground and flooded Moncton.
Then we did experiments to collect evidence. Here's one piece of evidence we collected.
We know 17,000 years ago, a glacier dropped sand, dirt, and rocks.
Throughout the whole process, as we gathered more information, we revised our thinking and explanations about how and why the town flooded.
We also learned about liquid measurement when we conducted our experiments.
Lastly, we researched and heard from community professionals such as Rachel Easton, who taught us about glaciers and glacial moraine.
In art and tinkering class with Miss Dumas, we painted landscape art. We included things of the foreground and background. Mine is titled Calm Valley and includes the foreground and background.
As we learned about different landscapes in our Moncton unit, we used that information to create our landscape art. This is mine titled Tourist Trap and includes a mountain in the foreground and fireworks in the background. Tourist Trap.
Finally, we made our final scientific model into a mural so
we could use art to teach other people about Moncton.
Hi, my name is Evan Robson. I am in Mrs. Agnes's class.
Hi, my name is Aylin Mead, and I am in Miss Friedman's class.
We are third graders at Pioneer Elementary.
We would like to share how we use technology that we learned in innovation to model our Moncton and Earth Changes learning.
We use Tinkercad to design and print 3D houses and to use in our model. We used with clay to build our dam and poured water to see if the dam would hold the water or if the town would flood. We saw the water came up from the soil and flooded the town. This model helped us understand how the town flooded.
We also used Tinkercad to design and 3D print compass roses. We learned in class about how to read and construct our own maps. Then we used Tinkercad to design and 3D print our own unique 3D models of a compass rose.
We are happy to be able to use Tinkercad in school.
Thank you for allowing us to share with you today.
So as you can tell, we are so incredibly proud of our kiddos and all that they're experiencing, and as you can see, really trying to prioritize those competencies of problem solving and collaboration communication. And while we've got cool tech tools, they are for learning. They're tools. They're not an avenue of just consuming information, but really how do we use that to showcase what we've learned as well. So kiddos, I'm very proud of you. Good job.
Great job, everybody. That was awesome. Thank you all so much. You guys did a great job presenting. I was going to see if the board had any questions for you students, but you disbanded, so that's okay.
I do have one question.
Yeah. Let's see if there's a question, then someone can maybe come up that could answer it.
Can you explain the Rattlesnake Lake part?
Moncton is underneath Rattlesnake Lake because it flooded and then now it turned into a lake.
So the lake that's there now is called Rattlesnake Lake?
Yes.
Okay. That's much better.
Lori, can I ask?
Yes.
Okay, you got it.
No, go ahead. Anyone else have a question from the board? Okay.
I want to take an opportunity to ask some students some questions. So does anybody want to answer? Okay, good. So I would assume that you really like science. It sounds like there's a lot of you that really like the science and the tools. So what are 2 things that you love to do in your school, unlike you've ever done anything before?
The Makey and We Video Green Screen.
Can you repeat that last thing?
We Video Green Screen. It's where you can do a recording and then put something in the background when it's not actually there. And we used art and tinkering to make our mural with paint.
All right. I think I need to come to your school so you can tell me and explain, because I don't even know what that last item was. Will you help me understand?
It's basically just a green screen.
There you go.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Welcome.
Step right into that one.
Anything else?
Nope.
More questions? Okay. Thank you.
I think you guys are pretty amazing, and thank you, educators, for all of that.
That was a mic drop.
All right, next up, Kopachuk Middle School students are here. Principal Heidi Fedor will start us off.
I'm actually Eileen Schur, and I'm a teacher at Kopachuk. And I led the project and made the video. It was a project that I did with Highline College, and I knew STEAM Club would be the perfect group of kids to help facilitate this project. So I'm going to let Benton and Maria talk a little bit about what we did, and then we're going to share the video. The first couple of minutes is the brief that I received, and then the last part is them making the project.
Hello, my name is Benton Hewish, and I'm a member of STEAM Club. And so basically the project that we did at our school was we set out these kind of containers or boxes.
Like a week-long project that we did to collect a lot of plastic items that were like unused, to see how much we could collect over one span of week of 3 lunches.
And so students during lunchtime would like throw away their plastic materials like Ziploc baggies or water bottles, and they would put them in these boxes, and so I think it took 2 weeks. And so we would wait 1 week and grab all the materials and see how much we had. And then we decided to wait 1 more week to get more materials.
Yeah. We made a fish. Yeah, so we decided to make an art project with it. And we made like a banner with saying something, and then a big fish with the plastic bottles that we collected over that week.
We used the Ziploc baggies to make the banner, and we hanged it up in a window, and it told facts about plastic and like how much we recycle. And we also hanged the fish in the window.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Stay here for just a second. Let's see if anyone has any questions.
We're gonna watch the video. Is there a video?
With yeah. Oh, let's do that.
Yeah, all right.
I just want to say one word to you. Just one word.
Yes, sir.
Are you listening?
Yes, I am.
Plastics.
Exactly how do you mean?
There's a great future in plastics. Think about it. Will you think about it?
Yes, I will.
Enough said. That's a deal.
Around the world, nearly 1 million plastic water bottles are sold every minute. Millions of tons of plastic waste enters our ocean every year. Plastic can take lifetimes to decompose, leaving our planet drowning in waste.
Our planet is in trouble. We're reaching a crisis point when it comes to plastic pollution. But it's also solvable.
That's why we at National Geographic are asking our global community of changemakers to join us in choosing planet or plastic. From the pages of our magazine to the work of our scientists and explorers, we are using our voice to connect with millions and drive change. We've launched a global, multi-year initiative to reduce plastic waste in our ocean. We're supporting research to answer key questions.
We're tracking this plastic from source to sea.
And fund innovative solutions.
All the exterior facade is made from 100% recycled plastic bottles.
We're empowering the next generation of leaders by supporting educators and engaging students.
Whatever lesson that I'm teaching, I try to make connections to the real world, to the environment, and to their personal lives.
It's not something that's a next generation problem. It's a problem that we need to solve now.
It starts with people caring, and when you care, then you make a difference.
We hope you'll join us and help turn the tide on plastic waste.
We are the ones that can do something about it.
I'm really excited to see how we can solve this massive plastic problem.
let you know that we are starting STEAM Club on Tuesdays after school. It is STEAM. STEAM is
Science, technology, engineering, art, and math.
And we will be doing some really great hands-on projects. And to lead with the first one, we are going to collect all of the plastics for an entire week of school, and then we are going to take all those recyclables and make
plastic waste at Cook Chuck?
Well, one way that we can reduce our plastic waste is by using reusable water bottles. This will help eliminate a lot of plastic. And so far, we've helped eliminate waste from 7,469 disposable plastic bottles.
Hey guys, how do I reduce waste at Cook Chuck?
Well, one way we could do it is by putting your sandwich in a reusable plastic container instead of using the baggies.
And if you didn't use the baggies, then you could save 180 baggies per year. And if everyone did it, then we would save 90,000 baggies.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. You guys have, well, I have a question. Do you mind if I start? What's your favorite thing about STEAM Club?
I like that I get to go after school and hang out with my friends and do cool projects, and I like it a lot, and I think that it helps me learn a lot.
Good. Do you have a favorite thing?
Yeah, again, like meeting up with a lot of friends there, also finding out a lot of new things. Like we did a forensics unit where we like tried to find like fingerprints, and that was really interesting, and you learned a lot. Especially with this unit also, we found a lot about like how much plastic there actually is and how much of a problem this really is, and it was really interesting to learn about it and do the project.
Awesome.
I'd like to know, is your STEAM Club helping you decide what you might want to do for a career when you get older?
I guess I really like science in general. I like space science a lot, so hopefully I can get into that.
Yeah, I mostly went to STEAM Club because when I grow up, I want to be an engineer, and I just like doing STEAM stuff in general. So, yeah.
Quick question. Yeah. So, is your fish still on display? And if it is there any chance maybe you could go on tour so other people could see it?
I don't think it's on display anymore.
Yeah, they took it off. It was a while back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, cause
still somewhere though.
Yeah, cause we have an art class there, and the students who do art, they put their art there. So, yeah, we kind of took up their space.
Yeah.
Kopachuk's in the middle of a remodel,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
we
yeah.
are recycling everything.
Yeah. So there must have been a lot of other things that you found out could be done with plastics to recycling. What were some of the cool things that people were doing?
We learned that you can make lots of different things out of plastics. I know in some other schools they have these benches or in parks that say oh, this was made all by recycled milk jugs.
So you can melt them down and put them in forms.
Bags or something I'm finding for grocery stores, you would be able to reuse them. A lot of the times they're made of plastic also.
Right. Yeah. Very cool. We need to do more.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a
Did you have anything? I think I would like to be in STEAM Club, so I'll see you there.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you guys so much for coming. That was awesome.
Thank you.
We do have a few seats up in the front. The front couple rows are open if anyone wants to sit. Now we have a couple more videos to share. The first one is from Harbor Heights Transitional Kindergarten. Well, now I can't decide between STEAM Club and Transitional Kindergarten. I'd like to do both. I'm going to ask Superintendent Barr to tell just a little tiny bit about what Transitional Kindergarten
Well, I want to make sure that Harbor Heights or any transitional kindergarten teachers, are they here? Are they represented? Certainly don't want to speak on your behalf. Oh, I'm not going to call you out. Would you like to come up? Oh, okay. Do we have any of the TK teachers? Okay. Well, I got a little teary because that's the class that, if you read the April, was it April? I don't know, the months are blending in, but the leprechaun traps, that was the class that we had the opportunity to see when they opened the door, and then they came in, and lo and behold, there were leprechauns that had come into the transitional kindergarten. These are students that have turned 5 sometime in the school year, after school has started, and so this is really the first inaugural year. But I tell you what, if there was such excitement, but those little ones were telling us all the things that were happening, and they were, I have some video, but I know we didn't share it, but they were so animated, as you could see, and they were so excited about their learning. I'm just so grateful that this is a school district that honors and values early learning, and that we're doing it the right way. It's really an amazing thing. Governor Inslee absolutely vetoed, so we can do more next year, which is great. We sent a letter and said, we love TK, we want to continue that. And so I just want to thank those teachers from the first day those little kiddos come in, they're 5. They're like cats. And then to get that, like that, with the music teacher at all of the schools and all of the teachers, it is the best experience, I have to say. I mean, I love all the STEAM and all of that, but just to see the little ones and their love of learning. So I just want to thank everyone, and I really want to thank the board for sponsoring a pretty innovative new program and allowing us to expand that as large as we can get it. We want as many students in as early as possible, and it's a very joyful place, so thank you. And I love those boots. I don't know.
That was great. And we have one more video. This one is from Artendale Elementary. It's a history of Artendale and a tour.
Hi, I'm Jessica Rosendahl, the principal at Artendale Elementary. I'm going to share our school's history and then take you on a school tour. On February 12, 2019, the Peninsula School District community passed a $198.55 million bond for school construction to address extreme elementary overcrowding and other emergent infrastructure needs. Now, approximately 3 years after the bond's passage, Artendale Elementary is the fourth school to be completed out of our 4 elementary construction projects, and 6 projects overall. This project was considered a school replacement project, as the new school building was constructed adjacent to the existing building, allowing students to attend on-site while the new school was being built. The new building opened to students on November 22, 2021. Demolition of the old building began on January 3, 2022. Students were able to watch a live stream of part of the demolition process from the safety of their classrooms. After the demolition is complete, a new playfield and covered play area will be constructed. The Artendale replacement was designed by Integris Architecture and constructed by Lincoln Construction. The Artendale replacement project would not have been possible without the passing of the 2019 Capital Projects Bond, which provides quality, flexible spaces for learning and the future growth in the Peninsula School District. Now let's start our tour.
Welcome to Artendale.
Hi, I'm Pauline Johnson. I'm the office manager at Artendale, and I wanted to welcome you to our new office. It's beautiful, it's bright and light. We can see outside, see the weather, and we can see the wonderful students inside. I have a big window here. I can look over to the commons and see them playing and having fun during the day. I'm so excited to be in the new building.
Hi, my name is Ryan Heastian, and I'm the Dean of Students here at Artendale Elementary, and I'd like to welcome you to our commons area. It's such a lovely multi-purpose space. It's the center really of our building. When you walk in, this is the first thing that you see. The nice thing about it, it's connected to our music room, the commons, and the gym. We can open up our walls, and so when we do start having performances or assemblies, we're able to accommodate as many people as we possibly can to come view our wonderful students. The other nice thing is the multi-purpose space allows us to have lunch in here, and that's something that we didn't have at the old building. So we're super excited when we get to use this space for everything it was designed for.
I like the commons and PE because you can have fun in them.
Welcome to our early learning preschool classroom at Artendale. We love to be part of our new building. The open space has really inspired the kids to just get with their friends and play and enjoy, and working on all those early literacy skills. The kids have really enjoyed being part of the community, part of the building, seeing their siblings, their neighbors, their friends as they walk down the hallway.
This is the second grade flex space, and all of our grade levels throughout the building have got a flex space. And this space is used in a variety of ways. Teachers can send kids out for small groups. Sometimes when I like to meet with a student, I can grab a child from a classroom and come out and we can sit and enjoy this space.
The flex space is where sometimes if we finish a project early, we come out here to play a game until during math. We play math games if we finish early. So we come out here to do it so we don't distract other people in our classroom.
Hi, I'm Amy Waggy and I teach 3rd grade here at Artendale. We are enjoying our new school. We love the windows and the brightness that the windows bring. We also love our new furniture that kids can use around the room. You can see here they use them as tables, they use them as chairs, they can sit back to back and read a book together. The wobble stools are awesome. The kids can get a little bit of wiggle as they're working. Just having new tables and being able to move them about in any space that you want is awesome.
Welcome to the library at Artendale. It's a beautiful space, beautiful light, lots of windows. My favorite part of the library is our displays that are here on the window. I get to see the children coming and going as they can get off the buses and drop off their books in the morning. We are thankful for a robust catalog. We have lots of new and current titles. We have a beautiful space that is the perfect environment for learning for our kids here at Artendale.
My name is Taylor Flynn. I am a 5th grade teacher here at Artendale, and I was actually an Artendale student. I went to Artendale K to 5, so it's been a really cool experience to go from the old building at the beginning of the year and now to the brand new building, and kind of seeing what it looked like as a kid versus now in this incredible space.
Since we have come into our new building, it has expanded how I have learned. It gave us a new space to learn and grow, and it gave us new opportunities to just make new friends, and we have a beautiful building now.
This is the makerspace. Right now the makerspace is one of our rooms that we're using for recess while our new playground is still under construction. And honestly, it is absolutely one of my favorite places in our new school. I love seeing the kids come in and just be able to explore their creativity with all of our different materials we have in here. They draw, make art projects, build things with Legos or the marble runs, do puzzles, play games together. It's just great to see them having fun and being creative.
What I like about the makerspace is like the games and like the roller coaster games really fun, and like all the marble runs. And me and my friends like to play Legos too.
Thank you for taking a tour of our new Artendale Elementary. I'm just so grateful for us to have this brand new space, and I know our staff, students, and community are just thrilled to have this opportunity for our students to learn and grow together in this wonderful new environment. Thank you so much.
Do we have any Artendale staff people in here tonight? Anybody from Artendale? I don't want to put you on the spot. Is there anything you want to shout out about the new building? Oh. Awesome. Well, it was fun to be there the other night. Well, twice in the last little bit for the ribbon cutting and also for the community forum the other night. And I love all the windows in the library and like by the stairs and in the commons and all that. Anybody else have a comment about that? Nope. All right. So next thing on the agenda is student board rep discussion, but all of our student board reps were unable to attend tonight. So we will move on to comments from the community. And I do need to give you this little spiel before we get into it. So we can do it in the most efficient and orderly way. So the board recognizes the value of public comment on issues related to district business. In order to permit fair and orderly expression of such comment, the board provides time for public comment during each regular monthly board business meeting. Speakers will be given up to 3 minutes or less depending on the number of registered speakers. We'll be displaying a countdown timer on the screens so that speakers will be aware of how much time they have left. As a matter of practice, the board will not respond to comments or engage in dialogue during the meeting. Most issues require that the board review all available information before making a statement. I may request the superintendent delegate the response to the appropriate PSD staff member, so we appreciate your understanding and cooperation. Board Policy 1430 states in part, the president may exercise discretion to interrupt or terminate an individual's statement when it is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. I will call like we did last month for the first time, I'm going to call the first speaker as well as the next up speaker, and I'd like to request the first speaker come to the podium. The next up speaker can stand more over by the, where it says Peninsula School District there, and then that'll help speed up the transition. So the first speaker tonight is Sarah Garriott, and the next up speaker is Marcy Cummings-Kohler. Chloe. Thank you. Sarah.
Good evening. This year, the law mandating comprehensive sex ed takes effect. The law states in RCW 28A 300-478, comprehensive sexual health education for students in kindergarten grade 3 must be instruction in social emotional learning that is consistent with learning standards and benchmarks adopted by the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. Furthermore, as clarification, it states on our OSPA website, with reference to K through 3, that no sexuality content or curriculum will be required, although districts may choose to offer additional instruction in alignment with K through 12 learning standards for health education. To be clear, nowhere in the K through 3 OSPI standards for social emotional learning required by law to be taught once in K through 3 does it mention anything regarding gender identity, pronoun usage, gender expression, or sexual orientation. Gender identity is, however, explicitly listed under the K through 3 standards for sexuality education, which a district may or may not choose to teach in K through 3. My hope is to inform our community that if any teacher decides to teach that there are many ways to express gender to our district's children in grades K through 3, they are teaching sexuality education content according to OSBI standards and the law, which is more than what is required and against the wishes of the voting majority in this district who voted to reject the sex ed law in November 2020 per Pierce County election data. The RCW also clearly states that before any sexuality education is taught in any grade, parents are to be notified. Parents also have the right to review any sexuality education content prior to its being taught and have the right to opt their children out of said instruction. This legally required notification would then include gender identity teachings and philosophies in all grades K through 12, as gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation all fall squarely under the OSPI written standards for sexual health. I am requesting that our district keep sexual health learning standards, including gender identity, entirely out of K through 3, other than to teach good touch, bad touch, and that you will make it clear to our teachers that this is our district's position. If a teacher or our district wants to teach gender identity, this is in fact teaching sex ed standards, and therefore parents and guardians must be legally notified prior to said instruction and be given the option to opt our children out. Furthermore, it has come to our attention that many of our district's teachers have started publicly asking students for their pronouns by way of introduction on the first day of class. This practice is contrary to many families' highly personal religious beliefs and very possibly, I believe, contrary to medical privacy laws. I am asking our district to request that this practice be stopped immediately. Once again, please put policy in place restricting sexuality education, which legally includes gender identity and expression, to sex ed class, so that parents and guardians have a true and transparent opt-out per Washington state law. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Marcy, also, if you could state your first and last name for the record, and the next up speaker is Elise Yeaman. Thank you.
Marcy Cummings-Coho, and I zipped up my coat because I do have red on. I am a teacher, but I'm also coming as a community member and as a parent. Thanks for my coffee the other day. Okay, so I'm here as a parent and community member and want to address the inequities in our district, particularly at KPMS. I have 3 sons, and when my oldest went there was a robust experience. He was offered advanced learning opportunities. They had the NASA and robotics program, and when he was in 8th grade, he was interviewed by the Stars and Stripes newspaper, where he stated his lofty goal of joining the Air Force and becoming a doctor. He is meeting this goal. He is at the WSU Elson S. Floyd College of Medicine, his 2nd year, and is being all paid for by the Air Force. Many of his classmates turned out to be absolutely amazing contributors to our society and to our community. Their experience at KPMS was absolutely amazing. My middle child is an 8th grader, and my youngest is a 6th grader. Their experience has no way been as enriching. This year has been a struggle for many, but at KPMS, the lack of staff to support teachers and behaviors, the lack of systems in place to support students that has been very sad. Some of the students have felt that they need to take back their school because after going to admin and asking for support around others' misbehaviors, nothing has happened. Losing their success coach and their vice president, oh my goodness, their vice principal has only added to the problem, and having only one administrator trying to run the school, especially coming out of COVID, is appalling. It is not fair to the principal, the staff, or the students. How can we meet the needs of our students with this lack of support? As much as we say there isn't a difference between the two parts of the Peninsula School District, equity is not equality. Equity is recognizing that we do not all start from the same place and acknowledge it. We need to make adjustments to the imbalances and remove the unintentional barriers that these students have. It is giving the resources and programs to help level the playing field for all students. My husband and I did reach out to KPMS to ask how we can help. We are solution-oriented people, and we want the best for all of our kids. We want KPMS to shine again. There are so many incredible students and staff there that deserve the best support we can give them so that they can turn into their best selves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcy. Next up speaker, I apologize.
Elise.
No, I know, Elise. The next after you is it Mario Penalver from Harbor Ridge? Go ahead, Elise. Thank you.
Hi, I'm a teacher at Gig Harbor High School. I work on the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion team for the district. I've done tons of work for the last 10 years for our district, and I absolutely love the work. And I really believe that when we know better, we do better. We really do. And I work on the front lines with students. I work for the Culture Club. When I first started at Gig Harbor High School, the Latino students weren't being talked to. They were walking around the school as an island, and they were not succeeding, and kids were dropping out. And so when we talk about the disparities, you know, thank you, but that we had just heard, we learned that when we put money, and especially into bargaining, when we put money into programs such as bringing up in-building leaders, people doing education, a facilitator at the district level who has power to help educate, even educating the board on some of the things that we are implicit biases and the things that we aren't always understanding. And our students, this week, several of my students, it's been difficult. It's been really difficult, especially when it comes to surface during the pandemic. And there's a lot of microaggressions happening in the district, a lot of hate speech that's happening in classrooms and in the hallways. And it's heartbreaking. We're losing students left and right. Our teachers keep asking, can we please be educated? Can we please be educated? And continually we haven't had that happen. And so it would be really great if we could attach a dollar amount, because we find the data shows that when you attach a dollar amount to a policy or a strategic plan or people in power, because it starts at the power at the top. And when you have that power, you're able to cross boundaries, to build bridges, and to create that place where our students and families are feeling supported and successful. I'm speaking for those who do not have a voice. I'm speaking for the students and the families and the mothers that send their kids to school knowing they'll be harmed. I'm speaking for those who cannot stand up tonight. Our kids are crying for support, for teachers to be able to have those hard conversations and talk about diversity, inclusion, and equity, especially equity. We need to go out and find teachers who are qualified and are diverse so that our kids can see people who look like them. And when we see people look like them, they can see that they can be a teacher. They can be a teacher that represents us in the schools. We need more money being pushed in our bargaining and more people in support at the district level advising us on what to do, because our teachers are not knowledgeable not all teachers are knowledgeable in equity, diversity, and inclusion work. Thank you.
Thank you, Elise. All right. Do we have? Oh, is it you? Oh, go ahead. And next up is Laurel Kingsbury.
Hi, my name is Mario Penalver, and I'm gonna assume here that I am not gonna have the right words for speaking on this topic, but I'm speaking also with all of my staff members, trying to advocate for a good and healthy contract for all of us. I think part of the issue here is that I think while we might all disagree on various topics, gender equality comes to mind. I think what's really important is that we all agree in this room, and I would never presume that any of us would question the importance of children and educating them. And I hear more often than not from my fellow colleagues, not through their words, but what they're doing, how much a need we have for healthy compensation, for the ability for them to go home and rest. And the anecdote that I want to share that comes to mind related to that is close to my heart. A friend and partner of mine, future fiance, actually was escorted by me, driven to urgent care over some of the pain that she suffered from an injury at work related to some students. Now, I think part of the problem here isn't what she signs up for. It's in the amount of time that she spends every day, and people like her spend every day trying to work, and the amount of time they spend thinking about the children that they serve. The memory that comes to mind is not the urgent care. The memory that comes to mind is not the pain that I saw her suffer through the course of the next few days. It was the sticky note that was sitting in the console that she left while I found parking, and she was dropped off at the front of the entrance so that she could get into the clinic. And that sticky note had nothing on it related to our family, to the bills that she had to pay. It was about 6 or 7 bullet points full of things that she needed to do on behalf of the children that she was serving the next day. And I know that all of us here have some sort of story behind that. We don't serve because we're going to come home the next day safe. We serve because we love the children we work with. And I think that deserves a monetary number that goes with it, to be able to make them feel like they can go home and say that they can pay their bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Next after Laurel is Garth Jackson.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I know that it takes a special talent and a honed skill to listen intentionally to each and every public comment, and I appreciate how well you all have mastered that skill. First of all, I'm a mom of a 5th grader and a 3rd grader, but second of all, I'm a specialist teacher at Discovery Elementary. I'm here tonight to talk about one main aspect of who teachers are. Teachers and school employees are hard workers. We are dedicated hard workers. We are determined, dedicated hard workers. We are fierce, determined, dedicated hard workers. We are hard workers physically, mentally, and emotionally. But we teachers are fatiguing and losing hope at an alarming rate. We here in the greater Gig Harbor area are not immune to the great teacher exodus that is occurring nationwide. There are headhunters and target ads reaching teachers with authentic and enticing job opportunities elsewhere. There are websites, videos, and social networking groups that are supporting and helping teachers make the leap from the classroom to any other arena or profession. Society and the market see the intrinsic value within and the skill set possessed by teachers, recognizing us as an untapped, invaluable, potential new workforce. Teachers are giving their all, but more and more it feels that our all is not enough and not valued nor honored. A lot of us don't want to leave this profession, but we see no alternative. But I can think of some things that as a community, as you as a school board, and as a district can do to help stifle the exodus of teachers. There are 3 crucial factors, in my opinion, that you as the board can do to demonstrate your support, your work, your commitment to supporting our community, to the health and growth and success of our young people. First of all, listen to the teachers at the bargaining table. We're not coming with asks of the moon or of Teslas or daily catered lunches. Our asks are reasonable, purposeful, and necessary. Please do not view us teachers sitting across the table as adversarial. Keep in mind we are all on the same team with the same goal and with the same hopes, and teachers are in the trenches daily. We see, know, and recognize what is needed and what is reasonable, and I ask that you listen and hear us. Second, specifically to elementary, and even more specific, focusing on kindergarten through 2nd grade. These kids' developmental processes have been altered, skewed, and in layman terms, kind of messed with over these past 2 years of pandemic learning. And now as a result, there's no exaggeration when we say the amount of challenging, outlandish behavioral issues that have exponentially exploded across the board in kindergarten through 2nd classrooms Some of our community's very best teachers, our brightest stars, our most revered heroes, our kindergarten teachers, who keep the rest of us afloat with their eternal optimism, consistent positive attitudes, and genuine loving souls, are faltering. And they're not sure they can or want to keep doing this. One of many things that you can do or we can do to support them, assist and retain these teachers, is to cap the building class size at 17. Not the school, not the district's average, but each building's class size at 17, which, as we all know or should know, isn't just a random number, but is a study, tested, and verified the maximum number of students that should be in a kindergarten through second grade classroom. Sorry, I clearly didn't get
Laurel.
all that in.
Appreciate it. Following Garth will be Carol Rivera.
Hi, my name is Garth Jackson. I am an engineer and a retired teacher, and I've been very concerned about education. You saw me here last board meeting. I have a message that takes more than 3 minutes, so I'm going to have to spread it out over a few different episodes, I guess. I promise there will be a conclusion at the end. I'm going to today, last time I talked about how schools are a regulated monopoly, and that's obvious, but they have strengths and weaknesses associated with that, but there are alternatives that I'm trying to get to. I am going to start with a literary allusion. Miss Lori from my 8th grade English class would be proud that I actually remembered what that is. But I don't read a lot of fiction, but I do have a couple of favorites, and J.R. Tolkien is one of them. He wrote a book that not many people know about, The Silmarillion, and in it is kind of a genesis of the Middle Earth. That sounds a little nerdy, but he talks about the creation myths that go along with The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And in it there is a god-like creature who is jealous of the creator, and so he wants to create life himself, and so he's able to create these bodies that breathe and have their heartbeats, but they can't do anything unless he's paying attention to them and directing them. And as soon as his attention goes away, they collapse and they're gone. We have an absolutely fantastic superintendent and wonderful board, and I think a lot of great teachers and everything else, but because of the structure of a regulated monopoly, the attention bandwidth that can be given to problems is fairly narrow. If the board isn't paying attention to it, a lot of these problems collapse, just like the creations that were in Tolkien's book. And the bandwidth brings up the next thing that Mrs. Laurie would like, was an analogy. We are one radio station broadcasting to a very diverse public. And just imagine what it would be like if everyone who listened to the radio could only listen to one station. As it is, though, because there's a broad bandwidth in this area, we can listen to the station that most fits our needs. And so we can listen to talk radio, jazz, any number of the classical, all these things, because we all have these different approaches and different needs and different ways of communicating in there. So we have a huge bandwidth we can look at and take advantage of in approaching all of our needs, the great diversity of the human population. The difficulty is with public schools is we have a very narrow bandwidth. And so I think what we need to start looking at are opportunities within the regulations that are imposed on the schools to try and expand that, to come up with alternative approaches to education and things that we can do as we try and move towards school choice. And that's all I have to do today, and hopefully I'll get the rest in at the next meeting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So Carol Rivera, and then following her is Kelly Wilson.
Well, good evening, much like Garth. My name is Carol Rivera. I'm the president of Peninsula Education Association, and I have regular messaging for the board in our community. So I'm here most Thursdays. Come and enjoy it. All right, tonight I just wanted to keep mine pretty brief. I'm here just to share how seriously I take my responsibility representing my certificated colleagues. Thank you for all that you do. I want to make sure that you understand that our entire bargaining team considers each and every portion of their job, every little detail that they do that brings them to the service of our students. We are diverse, and we do provide opportunities to address student needs in unique and special ways based on what they bring and come to us with. Collectively, I want to share that we are hopeful and optimistic that through our conversations with the district, that they are listening, really listening to understand our needs, why we are asking for changes to our collective bargaining agreement, and how impactful those changes will be for both students and educators. We want the board and the district to know that we are committed to our families and our community, especially our students. And in turn, we want to feel that same level of commitment by securing a fair and competitive agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Kelly Wilson.
Hi, I'm Kelly Wilson. This is my school here, and I was really coming to support all of my friends, but I was really encouraged to share. So look at all my Post-it notes. So I'm going to put my Post-it notes down because it's going to take me about 30 seconds to say this. I've been doing this a long time, like 29 years long, and I love my job, and I'm not tired of teaching at all. We love our job, and that's why all of us are here in red. And I want to say to you guys, because a lot of you are my friends also, I love the way you guys listen to teachers. You don't listen to us just here, but you listen to us on the side when I see you. You guys are amazing, and I value each one of your unique qualities that you bring to the table. So everything Laurel Kingsbury was saying, if I could just pick up from there, because I've never in my years seen teachers saying, I think I need to go get some meds. No kidding. Somebody said that to me because I don't think I can keep doing this. A couple years ago, Lisa Ray presented and she spoke to the TK situation, and we have it. But she also spoke to smaller class sizes. And we were starting this school year. It was so exciting. Here at Swiftwater, we were allocated 4 teachers in kindergarten. And the week before school started, we were told that one of us had to leave and move to a higher grade level because we were condensing down to 3. And Kristen, I know you know that I wrote you a very long letter, and I don't usually do that. And I don't usually do this, but this is how passionate we feel about this. So I'm speaking for all of us, especially kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade teachers. You guys moved and hustled, and before I knew it, we went from 4 to 3, and within another week, we were back to 4 because we were drowning. The level of, like Laurel said, behaviors, it's just more than that. There's so many levels of complexity that these kids are bringing to the table, partially related to the pandemic, but partially things are just changing. The landscape of their brains are changing as a result of a lot of things, and that's a whole other story. And so we want to do our best job teaching these kids, and in order to do that, having a smaller class size makes all the difference. I've done the 33 to 1, and then it went 20 to 1 in California. The things I'm doing this year, guys, post-pandemic, with my 16 kids, I have not seen in 29 years of teaching. Where they are today in March and April, I have never seen my kids so far advanced at every single level of their standards for kindergarten. I am blown away. We could end right now, push my kids into 1st grade, and they would be excelling at 1st grade. So I've got 2 more months. These kids are going to be dynamic next year, but it's all because I've got 16. I could do anything, but not anything, and it makes a difference. Okay, that's it.
Thank you so much to everyone who came and took the time to speak and address the board. We really do appreciate your comments and your involvement. We are going to move to district reports and hear from Erin O'Neill first, but I do have a favor to ask, and I know that no one knows better than all of you staff people what it's like to manage a room full, and if anyone needs to leave before the end of the meeting, if you could just keep in mind that I've noticed since we've been meeting at Swiftwater, the sound really carries from the foyer back into here, and also even when people like to assemble right outside that window, so it's distracting because we can see you and hear you. And so if you have to leave before the end, I totally get that, but if you could just help us out by moving a little bit farther away from there. So thank you so much. So Erin O'Neill is going to come up and tell us about the CTE evaluation and a 3-year plan. for college, career, and life readiness. Aaron.
Yes, thank you. I'll give folks just a minute if that's okay.
Erin's going to start crying because everyone is leaving right before she presents. So
I'll try not to take it personally. Okay. Thank you, President Glover and Board of Directors, for having me. I have not presented to you since November of 2020. It had to have been on Zoom, right? And so it's just really hard to see the dynamics. But I'm so glad to be here. And boy, our little ones tonight, they're going to give me a run for my money on what kind of programming we need to have for them in a few years, right? Based on what they're doing. But I think you'll be excited to hear about some ideas that we have and the direction that we want to go. So tonight, the CTE presentation, Career and Technical Education presentation, is a little different than in the past. I usually come up and tell you all the wonderful things that are happening and that are going on, and you're going to hear a little bit about that, but you're also going to hear a lot of information about the data that we've looked at this past year, the evaluation that was done, and the direction we're headed. Does that sound okay? All right. So this year really has been a year of data collection and recentering ourselves. We've done we've accessed four big ways of data. One is through Dr. Gil Mendoza, who came in and he talked to 32 of our staff members and parents and community members, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. A second one is principal collaboration. Knowing that we can make really high quality CTE programs walking arm in arm with our principals is going to be really important. And so me walking arm in arm with Dan Gregory, we met with principals several times over the fall. We also did a CTE teacher survey in January. And we have notes from our study session with you a few weeks ago where you wanted more information. What you might notice on this list is missing a little bit is student voice. And one of the things that we have on our 3-year plan that you're going to hear more about is how to get student voice at our fingertips. Right now, we don't have systems in place other than going out and visiting with students, which of course we love to do, but how can we get a more totalitarian view, total view, we don't want that, of our student data that represents all of our kids. All right. So Dr. Gil Mendoza came and visited with many of you from about December to February. 32 people were interviewed, and he asked questions of you about our current programming and then also our vision for CTE programming in our district. He also looked at a lot of other data, including the 2012 WASA review, which is about 10 years old, but it's still full of good information. He also looked at our budget, our CTE certified staff members, and several other things that are components of high quality CTE programs. Then in our principal collaboration, we really had 3 goals. One was to inform our principals and administrators of current tech programming. For those of you that know a little bit about it, there are several components that go above and beyond basic ed that we're required to do, including advisories, certification, career and tech student organizations, just like the STEAM Club you saw tonight. That is a component of career and technical programming. So we wanted to inform them about all of those characteristics that are really important to have. We also asked their short-term suggestions for corrective paths, and then we asked their long-term vision for career and technical education. The teacher survey asked our teachers, what kinds of things do you have regarding needs of curriculum, equipment, professional development? And as a reminder, not that you need it, we've been in COVID for a couple of years. And so they haven't been in their classroom a lot. So it really was just a reset to help guide us on what do we need to help with them be successful with students immediately and how to best plan long term. So one of the recommendations from Dr. Mendoza is to really have a vision. And that was kind of hard for me to hear because I feel like I have a vision, but what it really got me thinking about is I need to be better at communicating it. This statement isn't new to you all. Our vision for career and technical education is that every student has a dream, they aspire to become and be and do, and that we help them with a plan to reach that dream. We also have a mission, and that is our career and tech programming offers certain opportunities for our students, guaranteed. That it gives them the opportunity to explore and discover. A piece of data that really struck me is that 80% of us choose a career based on somebody we know in the field. That's why, and you can probably think of a family member whose grandma was a teacher and their mom was a teacher and they were a teacher and their child was a teacher. Not my family. Yes, it really was. That exactly happened in my family. And that is great and wonderful. I'm so glad to be an educator. But if we expose kids to more opportunities, more people, and they hear more stories, they might then be interested and have a whole world of opportunities opened up for them. We want them to walk away with technical and professional skills. We heard a lot about the littles learning 21st century skills. We need to expand that. Our industry partners, people in industry, want our kids to have those skills when they walk in the door. For our kids that are going to college, it of course helps them. But for our kids who may select another pathway, getting those technical and professional skills before they leave the 13 years with us is really critical to set them apart in their pathway. We need to have a bridge from career or to career and post-secondary. I used to think as an educator that walking across the stage and earning your high school diploma was the end. It's just the beginning. And so we have to commit to making sure that our students have a clear plan after they leave, no matter what that is, but that they have that information to make a really good decision. To do this, and as you hear a little bit more about our 3-year plan, I commit, and I don't think I've wavered from this since I've been here from 6 years ago, but that we have high quality programs that make a difference in the lives of our children. That we are equitable, that we're constantly looking at our data and making sure that the students in our classes reflect our population. That we have partnerships. Nobody can do this work alone. Teachers can't, I can't. We have to have our partnerships where we walk arm in arm and create these opportunities for students. We have to look at data, and a good example of that is tonight. You've seen all the data that we've examined to help inform our next few years. That's really, really critical. And then, of course, continuous improvement, which you're going to hear about tonight. So from Dr. Mendoza's report, he gave us a few commendations, and my guess is you've heard of these programs in the past few years. The Teacher Academy, helping our young people be prepared for careers in education, but also leadership. We come from both perspectives there. Our Skilled Trades program that helps our students prepare for a variety of careers in skilled trades. And then ROTC. We are wrapping up our first year in ROTC, where we have served over 100 students so far this year. These 3 programs have something in common. First of all, they're 2 periods a day. That allows us to have more time to do all of the things that are required of high-quality career and technical programs, and I think that makes a difference. They have industry certifications. Skilled trades students walk away with 5 industry certifications, and I'll give you an example of why that's important. One of the certifications is a flagger. You know, the folks out there that help keep us safe through construction. Their starting wage is about $20 to $22 an hour. The training is 12 hours. You have to be 18 to be certified, and then you can go out and work there. Now, in this region, $20 to $22 an hour might be a questionable sustainable living wage, right? But guess what they're doing out on the construction site? They're meeting people in the industry. Their doors are being opened for other opportunities. And it's better than $15 at another low-skilled job. College credits, skilled trades, 11 college credits. Teacher Academy, 3 college credits. And the ROTC program sets kids apart so that if they were to join the military, they would go in at a higher rank. And next year, Commander Hood says that he is also going to offer his students drone certification. Again, setting them apart by the time they graduate. I think I was told I had 15 minutes, and I bet I'm there right now, so I'll try to speed up a little bit. All right. What Dr. Mendoza shared with us in our work with principals as well as our teachers, what we also learned is that we have some work to do. For example, one of the things that's not really clear to our students and our families is the pathway. So for example, if I wanted to dive into computer science and take all the opportunities available, it's not really clear. So we're going to spend some time on creating tools to inform our students and our families, our counselors, our administrators, what those pathways are and how kids access them. We're also going to create our 3-year plan, which we're starting to see the first draft of it tonight. We're going to get a little clearer about the budget process. One of the things that we've seen the last couple of years is funding left over. How can we be more intentional about it and get kids the equipment, our teachers the professional development, and the things we need to be even more successful. We're going to collaborate. As you will know in the strategic plan for the district, community engagement and partnerships are critical. It has been so fun to be part of those community meetings. I've been meeting people. I got a couple business cards. But our kids will be more successful, and frankly, our teachers will be more successful if we continue to build those relationships and connect to industry. That's really important. We want to work with student services. As you all know, in our district, we're working really, really hard on inclusionary practices, making sure that our environment is open to all the students that we serve. We'll continue that work, and I want to work a lot more closer with student services to make sure that our teachers have the skills that they need to be successful with that, and that the programming is accessible to all of our students. A couple of things that we learned from principals as well as a program review is there are a couple of classes that could really use some collaboration and a shot in the arm. For example, computer science at middle school we started a couple years ago. It's going really well, but what we found as the teachers have become more confident is it's not really as much hands-on as they'd like to be. So this spring we're going to be collaborating and iterating that class a little bit. Thanks to the leadership of one of our teachers, Jesse Ernst, he's going to help us work through that. Another one, and we heard not only from the reviews, but also you when we met a few weeks ago in the DLI study session, was our college career and financial exploration. That how might we bring finances more deeply into it? How might we really identify those power things that kids need to know to be successful once they leave school? So we'll be doing that work this spring. And then next year, what does next year look like? Drone certification is coming. That means kids 16 or older who take the class and the training can sit for a test, and at age 16 they can have the FAA Part 107 certification. We're going to do that in standalone classes, and then we're also going to incorporate it into our ROTC program. We have a second semester programming class coming next year at the high school to again expand that pathway. And Navy Science 3 and 4 will be happening next year. All right, we're also going to start research on a few classes. One of those we've been tinkering around with, and then that darn COVID again, is a CNA program. We believe strongly that many of our students would be interested in it. We believe strongly that will help our students launch after graduation into nursing school, and we believe those who might want to postpone college or not go, it will still give them a higher wage. So we're going to be diving into that next year. We're also going to be looking at middle school programming. Is it equitable across the district? Do all the schools, students at all the schools have access to all that we offer? If not, why? And if not, also how can we get it included in all the middle schools? Another one I want to talk about too, and we heard a little bit tonight, is this coordination of engineering and environmental science. Remember our little guy Benton? Right? Well, it's been a dream and really critical that we cross those career paths, and I'm hoping, and we're going to start research next year, on having a middle school through a high school academy that includes engineering and environmental sustainability. It's hard to think another year after that, but in 23-24, we hope that the research will result in an implementation of the nurse aid program, of STEM pathway, the middle school programming that we talked about as well. And then we'll also take a look and start looking at family consumer science pathway and this notion of design media. So we have digital photography, we have video production, but a piece that we're missing is the user experience. How do we take that media and get it to the user? So we're going to start to explore pathways in that. And then maritime and aviation. When we think of land, sea, and sky, what's missing there? And so by 23-24, I'm always thinking about it, but we'll be really intentional about the research that year. A couple other things that are early wins is those pathway advisories. COVID, we have what's called a CTE General Advisory, and we've been pretty consistent about meeting, but what we have a gap in the last couple of years due to COVID are pathway advisories. In other words, those industry professionals that will come and tell us and inform us about how sciences or STEM or skilled trades. So we're going to be really working hard to get those back up and going. And then another kind of casualty are those career and tech student organizations. It was so exciting to hear about the STEAM Club at Kopachuk, and we have to start building those back up at each one of our schools. It's a requirement of CTE, but it's also just a really great way to connect with kids, not only who are in CTE programs, but when we think of in our schools, sometimes kids don't have access to those programs because their schedule is full or other choices that they make, and those CTSOs still open the door for all students to access current tech programming. We might have a duplicate. Would you go one more?
No, that's different than the one you had up before.
Oh, okay. Just looks the same. Thank you.
Yeah, the right hand.
All right. So as you can see on the right-hand side, those things that we start researching, we'd be looking to implement. Two things I want to touch on that I have not yet. One is remember that student voice, that student data. I'm working along with a team in the district, our head of assessment, our counselor, our student services executive director on our high school and beyond plan. Right now we do it, but what we're also finding is there's a wonderful, more robust, more meaningful way to do it that not only informs the student and their family, but that can help inform us about what we do. And so we're looking at possible tools to use and implement in the future that will help us with that data and with that student voice. And the second one is CTE certification. Washington State, in its desire to be flexible, has made CTE certification also complicated. But the bottom line is we have quite a few staff that are on what's called a conditional cert. And that means they need either more hours in industry or they need to complete classes. So our work in the next couple years is to get them highly qualified, fully certified CTE teachers as well. All right, now remember, it's been a while since I've seen you, so I wanted to share the progress that we've made on the goals that you saw in November of 2020. If you look at 2021, computer science for innovators and makers is not only in place at the middle school, but we're already looking at iterating it to make it better. The same for app creators. We have several teachers trained across the district, have implemented it, and now they're collaborating it to make it next level. Forensics technology, back in November of 2020, we just had one section at one high school. And this year we have 6 sections. When we think about the interest in kids and how it helps them, again, get involved in careers and graduate, also helps them meet that science credit, we've expanded that. Then we have the Navy Science Program. I won't elaborate on that. We also have health or medical detectives at the middle school. I told you in November of 2020 20 that we had this wonderful health science pathway, but what was missing was a middle school component to get kids interested. So we've implemented that at 3 of the 4 middle schools, and the 4th middle school will implement this fall. And then we already talked about computer science for expansion at the high school. One of the things up there that you'll notice for 22-23 is nurse aid. As I said before, we're going to really examine it and see how we can get it going by the 22-23 school year, and then the energy and sustainability pathway as well. That was a lot, and it wasn't everything, but I'd like to open it up to questions that you might have.
Thank you. Go first. Well, first off, I think 7 or 8 years ago, we had a CT director that came and was here for like a year, something like that. And so first I want to just thank you for your commitment to our school district. Okay? I really appreciate the comment about communication. You know, we've been out in the community doing our strategic plan discussions in the last couple of weeks. And I was at a table last night sitting with Dan and James, and we had a couple of parents that had talked about the communication piece around CTE, and that they aren't real sure what the CTE options are. So I think it's really important going forward, and you brought that up tonight, so I appreciate that we do a better job of communicating to our parents and students what those future options are going to be sooner, because I think they need to be able to look down the road and see what their options are. And for me, I think we just saw tonight these amazing little kiddos in elementary school being fascinated by this stuff, which is part of CTE. And I think that the littlest ones, their brains are like sponges, and they pick this stuff up. And I think the sooner they learn these things and become fascinated by these things, that, as you said, as long as there's being able to go from elementary school to middle school to high school, so that they don't get dropped off somewhere. I think that's really important. My voice is scratchy, sorry. But you touched, so a couple of questions for me is, first off, I think we've added, at least since you've been here, at least 30 new CTE opportunities, which is amazing. And I don't think we get enough credit for it as a district, how far we've come for our community to give our students additional opportunities and pathways other than college that they can go to and do something else. The question for me is CTE professional development. What would you need from the board and the school district to help get these CTE teachers that additional training and professional development? I think Dan touched on with a parent last night about some of the schools only have maybe one CTE option. Maybe they have a theme, multiple schools. And I don't know if it's due to lack of students enrolling or maybe lack of funds or what. What could we do to help you with additional CTE PD? And then what is, I know Gil, when he was questioning the board, interviewing the board, he mentioned the opportunity, and this is why we really love Creston, is one of the reasons, grants. Grants. What's wrong with my voice tonight? What opportunities do we have for CTE grants to explore to bring in additional dollars for CTE?
Those are great questions, but I do have to clarify. I don't think it's 30. I think it's several, but I don't think it's 30 new classes.
Over 6 years, I thought. Okay.
But I appreciate that. So the first question with regard to professional development, you know, when I think about CTE in our district, there are 73 courses, right? And there are 58 teachers between middle and high school. And so there's not a one-size-fits-all, as you might imagine, from career path to career path. The best professional development for staff in CTE is collaborating with industry partners and each other to help define what their classes are and where they want to take them. But there are also other things that we can do to support them. So for example, a couple of years ago we had several teachers participate in project-based learning instruction, and it has been a game changer for those that have implemented it. We're also going to align future professional development with our work in universal design for learning, which again will be a game changer for our teachers in CTE. We've had several teachers participate in what's called Project Lead the Way. So you heard several classes up here: computer science for innovators and makers, app creators, medical detectives. And Project Lead the Way is fabulous professional development, especially for those teachers who have never really taught that content before. It not only gives them the skills, but also just the confidence to teach it. So we'll continue to do that too. If I had Aaron's dream, it would be really to get them out and have them partner with other teachers, see what they're doing in their schools and their classes, advance industry partnerships, and then have more time for them to collaborate and build a high quality programming. The second question with grants is a really good question. So for the past couple of years, normally there's federal Perkins funding that helps supplement career and tech funding. For the past 2 years, we have not done it. And just really quickly, I'll tell you why. Perkins is now tied to what's called a comprehensive local needs assessment. And while we're constantly evaluating our programming, it was very specific about how they wanted to get feedback and data from the community. And not that I'm going to survey our community tonight, but the community was getting lots of surveys between COVID and the crisis. And here's one thing that in my mind didn't really make sense at the time, and it's pretty complicated. So long story short, we have not applied for Perkins the past 2 years. However, we continually apply for other grants and opportunities. There's ESSER funding available for CTE grants. We are going to apply for Perkins next year, so you're going to have a survey coming your way. Please fill it out, and if you have questions, let me know. We worked with our local representative, and we received a $170,000 capital grant, so we're always seeking additional funding as well. Another great example is Gig Harbor Rotary, the skilled trades program that we were talking about. Our kids build a tiny house every year. They haven't gotten to the last couple of years, of course, because of COVID, but they're working on it right now. Our local Rotary donates. It's about a $3,500 cost. All the materials for that tiny house that's then donated to LIHI. So we're always looking for opportunities to advance that. And the programming that I was talking about that we're going to start examining, it's not cheap programming. So we'll have to continue to pursue those grants so that we can make these things happen for our kids. Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Chuck?
Yes. So I'm worried about losing some of the things that we currently have. Out at KPMS, I know the NASA programs that were there years ago, and that was a temporary thing. I knew that would move on. Have we done anything to fill that gap at the middle school level and other programs there? I think we lost the photography program at KPMS also.
No.
No?
It's there.
We still have it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I know there was a struggle there for a while, I've heard.
Yeah, so what's been a little tricky the last couple of years is a highly qualified instructor in the areas of STEM, such as manufacturing and CAD and engineering. As you may know, Roland Smith, who is a longtime teacher in our district, came back and helped us out to bring back that program. That's how much that teacher cares about kids. He came out of retirement to help. And he has also worked with us to recruit new talent. We recently had interviews, and we offered the position that you'll probably be seeing at next board meeting. So we're really excited about that. That particular person comes from industry with lots of wonderful ideas, but also has never taught before. And so we want to make sure, and we're already start working on making sure that he is supported really well so that when he walks in the door in the fall, he's ready for kids. We are also expanding back with computer science out there next year. They took a pause this year, but it'll be coming back in the fall. And we're also training one of the teachers in the medical detectives that you heard about, and it will be at KPMS next year. So I think you'll see those start growing back. I just think COVID, it just got us off kilter a little bit.
And then journalism. My wife has made me ask about this. So she's a journalist. Are we continuing at the middle school level to build that? And I know we have a radio station that a lot of people don't even know we have. Are we building people to come into that program? And
yeah, so that's a good question. So first of all of the programming at middle school, which is the first part of your question, has to be STEM programming. Okay. That was a state law made in 2009. It's also one of the reasons you no longer see family and consumer science at the middle school. Doesn't mean family and consumer science isn't important or virtuous and that we should be teaching kids how to build healthy snacks, right? And cook, but it was no longer funded by CTE. It also doesn't mean you can't have it. It's just not funded by CTE, if that makes sense. So all of the current technical courses have to be under that STEM umbrella. That said, and you heard from one of our finest teachers tonight in CTE, Mr. Penalver, who has a state-of-the-art, still here, broadcasting program at Harbor Ridge. When you walk into his classroom, it is just like walking into a studio. It's pretty fabulous. So next time you're at Harbor Ridge, stop in 101? Room 1. And he's in room 1. At the high school, we have both yearbook and newspaper at both of the high schools. Years ago, our district had a pretty robust radio broadcasting program that, and you know, it's just hard to see, but over time really dwindled in enrollment. The other thing that we have to look at in CTE is something might be really cool to offer, but if there aren't any jobs, we probably shouldn't be offering it under CTE. Doesn't mean it's not important, right? But CTE, and we're guided by the state, and we're guided by the federal government, that it needs to be high wage, high demand, if it's CTE. And so when we were looking at broadcasting and making a decision about what to do, I looked up through workforce development the number of jobs in the field. And the kind of broadcasting that we were offering, there were 2 jobs in the state of Washington. Now, there were other jobs with the technical aspect, but that would be a whole nother course, right? And it's not something that we've ever offered.
Okay.
So I hope that answers your question.
It does, sort of, but I guess I see the broadcasting kind of tying in with podcasting and the public speaking and journalism all kind of tied together. You write the script.
It definitely should be reinvented. And as you saw from the media pathway in, I think, 23, 24, that's the year we're going to examine all of those things. Yes. The photography, video production, broadcasting. What could and should that look like?
Erin, could I add something? So one thing that we are planning very shortly is to go and see a brand new built high school that conceptually had their academics right with their CTE course up at Mount Si High School, one of the most innovative schools recently, but they were very planned about having both industry together with academics, because we know that the high-skilled jobs, also students have to have high academic skills in reading, writing, and mathematics, applied mathematics, and you know, all of the algebraic expressions. And so we look forward to looking at other schools and what they're offering. And quite frankly, after going to Norway, We are going to really have to rethink in terms of green shift and blue shift economy and really preparing our students for that next generation. It is, we need our students to be globally prepared, and I want to thank Erin. You've done an amazing job at anticipating the next couple years, but we might be accelerating. So, for example, for a grant, if we happen to get a grant in aviation, or we happen to get a maritime grant that came, and we were awarded that, then that would be able to change the timeline. We've heard very clearly that you would love our students to be industry ready, and we know that our students are excellent at academics. So just know that that's also in the plan. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Thanks so much, Erin. I really appreciated this, as I wasn't sitting up here in 2020, so this is all the first time for me, so thank you. I think I really appreciated hearing about the plan for financial literacy. I think for in our community strategic planning sessions, and then just some communications I've received from the community, that's a very big area that I think we could really do a great service to our kids, and not in the traditional sense, but I was reading about schools that are incorporating stuff like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and all what that means for the future of financial planning, because it's crazy, right? So I appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to hearing more how that's going to evolve. Also, about talking about community partnerships, I guess my question is, as part of this evaluation, have you been developing, we've talked about an asset map and kind of what is available around us right now? Because I think as board members, we all have our kind of connections to the community, yet are they being made with you? Have you been talking with them? I'm just wondering about how that component of sort of, for lack of a better term, an asset map has been part of this process for you.
That's a really good question. I'm going to use a term I recently learned called parallel structure. Things walking side by side, right? So there's the strategic plan, and I think some really wonderful things and direction is going to come out of that. While I know my asset plan, it's like, what does this say? And that will help us determine what this says. So I say that only because, yes, it's heavy on the mind, but it has not been done as I think, because I don't want to come to you and say, bring me all your community partnerships, when you're going, yeah, but who do you need and what do you need? And so figuring that out first will help me define clearly what it is and where the gaps are.
Great, and just one more question. So kind of speaking about the need with sort of the requirement for CTE to be high wage, high skilled careers, just got me thinking, you spoke about the tiny house, right? And I guess in my mind, I feel like there's been a little bit of the way we speak about CTE versus college is kind of an either or, whereas you take most of these CTE and I don't really see them as an either or, right? So in my profession, probably the thing that would have helped me the most as an architect would be if I had known about some of these skilled trades courses and been able to access a course, right, like building a tiny house. And so that goes back to David's point about the communication, right, of these pathways, as well as, something like the nursing program. Well, I would think that that's also applicable for our students who may have pre-med aspirations or things like that. So I would just encourage us to sort of open just the way we're talking about the CTE, and less about if you're going to the trades or you're going to college, and more that this is exposure to career paths, right? And that the way you move, the way we access them, sure, it could be a career path into the trades, but you can also dip in and it can spark something, that then maybe you are going on to college, but it's to service of that same related career. So
I appreciate that, and I was hoping to have the data for you tonight, and it's just not done yet. But we have all of our students who've graduated from skilled trades specifically, including their personal contact information, and we're finding out where they are. And what we're going to find from the first few that we've been able to get a hold of, right, that answer the phone, we're calling their moms too. Anyway, is just a robust variety of military and construction and engineering and in the trades. One of our kiddos, bought a brand new truck. How cool is that? And I think he's 21. He's not a kiddo anymore, but he's 21 years old. And so that's how skilled trades was built, was to open up the door to a wide variety of opportunities and not close any doors for what kids want to do. Mm-hmm.
Just one comment. You mentioned the flaggers started out about 20 doors. Now, that's a foot in the door.
Right.
For a lot of jobs that pay much better, but it gets you into working for the county or working for the Ken Lights, and they'll teach you. Several people that started that way on the ground.
Oh, right on. And for the young adult who decides to go to college, how great is it that they could get a job as a flagger to help them through college rather than something that pays $10 less an hour? Opens a lot of doors.
Can I go? Okay. Mostly comments. I mean, I look at this and I'm so super excited about the plan, particularly the, of course, maritime and aviation piece. I think this community will support that in its history and who lives here. So just up at this table alone, you have 3 aviation-connected families. And I know that you have built a really strong advisory team. So I'm wondering if now that you have these plans, what's coming in 23, 24, if you're going to start looking at those partnerships that maybe we could help you with to sit on an advisory team, and what's the timeline for that? Because we have some really big players locally, Boeing, Alaska, I'm sure there are others. Those are the 2 who come to mind that I think would be ready to jump in and support these programs. So what are you looking for by way of partners for a very specific industry like the maritime and aviation?
You bet. So that CTE General Advisory that you were talking about, so you're the first to hear our next steps, and then CTE General and Principals were this week too, and our CTE General Advisory is next, which is next week. We're meeting for the first time in person in like 3 years, so that's pretty exciting. And what you're not seeing tonight yet, because it's still in draft form, is a really comprehensive strategic plan that gets detail-oriented. And so that plan will be presented to our CTE General Advisory and iterated to the degree that feedback is helpful, and useful, and hopefully we'll have more direction after we visit with them and visit with principals a little more. My personal goal, especially, is for this fall, is to have those pathway advisories in place by this fall.
Great. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It was just great to see all the to go from speaking with Gil and that conversation to seeing it put into a strategy. My question is super basic. It's like a begin with the end in mind kind of question. When do we, because I love this every student should have a dream and a plan. When or how do we ask students what their dream is? Is that like a something that is, beyond just a concept? Do we ever take the time to have them, share with their teacher in a particular grade level? Like what do you see yourself for career-wise?
That's a really good question. I think we do it in a variety of ways, but not necessarily a systemic way. Does that make sense? So counselors are talking to kids, teachers are talking to kids, of course parents and admin are talking to kids. But the goal is to create a systemic way so that kids can not only share their plan, but they can also share that they might not have a plan, and they can change their mind about a plan. And so how do we get that data in really real time so that we can be responsive to it? And our goal then is to build a really robust high school and beyond plan, using likely a digital tool that will help those kids interact with and allow us to interact with to understand where they're headed. Or if they don't have a plan, remember one of the commitments was a clear plan. We want to know where our kids are going next and how we can support them. Our career counselor is pretty wonderful. She helps kids find scholarships, especially, so our kids fill out a senior survey and we have an idea of where they're going. It's really not systemic and not everybody has access to it, so we're trying to shift that. But she knows And so she called a student the other day and she says, hey, I have this scholarship for you. And the student says, well, I think I'm going to take a gap year. And she said, well, great. Call me when you're ready to go to school, students graduating, and you let me know and I will help you find scholarships. But you know what? If that student hadn't put that in there or we didn't know, it might not have happened. And so we really have to build something systemic so that every student, we know where they're headed, and we can provide the supports and be responsive for them how to get there.
Awesome, because Jennifer's comment, one of your comments made me think of this, because my ultimate question is just, you know, could we, whatever it is that we get to finding out what their dream is, could we do it sooner? Because, you know, because honestly, and this is just a simple concept, but I feel like if Jennifer knew in the 7th grade, because she went to a career assembly or in the 8th, whatever, and then found out, oh, you know, these are jobs that people have. And even things like, we talk about flaggers, but even things like if a student in, like before they're driving, a student in like say 8th grade, learns about how much truck drivers make and how many jobs there are right now, the need for that, then that student can, in addition to things they learn in school, can also keep their driving record clean as they get older and are driving, and, you know, focus on things like that, right? So I love all this. I'm just passionate about it. But I have always been thinking, you know, the sooner we can just present options or even have some of our PSD grads come back and say, hey, I'm 22 years old, this is what I'm doing for, you know, this is how much I make, whatever. I think it's really valuable. Right. But I love all the time you put in. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, David has one more question, he says.
Very last thing, I think this probably is before this board, but do you remember, and you probably will remember, I just brain freeze on what the name of it was, but it was a STEM fair that we had here in the school district that was focused on young ladies and I believe the middle school, and we brought Boeing in, we brought all these amazing big companies in. What was the name of that fair?
Cape.
Cape, thank you. Cape.
So oh, go ahead, please.
No, I was just saying, is there any plan to maybe get that going again?
Yes, there are two things, and you all received Dr. Mendoza's report. There are two things that have not occurred because of COVID, and one of them is CAPE. We didn't know where we'd be at this spring, and the planning, Joy Giovannini, who is wonderful, we start that in September, October, and if we don't get people in place, it's really hard to play out. So while we could have had it, we didn't know that in the fall. And then the second one is our health science summer internship. Again, our kids are in medical settings and COVID. So you're going to see both of those coming back. And then our third program, the West Sound Tech Summer Satellite, we have 7 courses that we'll be offering this summer. Last summer we did 2. This year we're just doing 1 because teachers need a rest. So we are having one of those sessions too. And it's a great place for our kids going into 9th through 12th grade to explore options that they might not have experienced yet. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Erin. We, at this point, are going to take a very short break, if that's okay. And we will reconvene at 8:04.
Thank you. They did clear the room.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. We're going to reconvene. Next up on district reports, item 8.2, Danielson Framework, TPEP, and BEST grants. And we're going to hear from John Helwick, I believe, first. John.
Hello. So I was thinking, okay, there's a request to talk about TPEP, so we're going to talk about this new program, and then I realized the new program is now 12 years old. TPEP is now 12, which means most of you weren't up here when we did this. So this is a good time to review where this came from. About 15-ish years ago, there was kind of a national movement around teacher and principal reform. And our state looked at that, and we were very fortunate, and our state took a real growth focus on that reform. And other states may have had other ways that they were looking, but our state was looking at growth. So I think that was a really important piece to it. So if you can go to the next slide, and the next slide. We're going to talk about these, but I'm going to have you even go one more. And there you see the what the core principles the state came up with to base TPEP around. So high quality teaching and leading for student success, growth in practice, it's developmental in nature. Growth occurs when there's clear standards of practice that really wasn't in place prior to TPEP. And the standards didn't really match. They were old and they didn't really match what we knew the standards needed to be. And they're supported by quality professional learning and learning focused feedback. Evaluation systems need to reflect and address the career continuum. So the expectations aren't going to be the same for a brand new teacher as they would be for a veteran teacher. There's a progression, and that's built into the program. And the focus for the teacher and the principal growth is driver student learning. So student learning is the focus, and it's a collaborative between the evaluator and the teacher. And all of these things apply to principal also, and Dan's going to be talking about that. And then so it's a collaborative growth process. That's really the bottom line of what TPEP's supposed to be and what it is in our district. So if you think about so they came up with in 2010 the TPEP guidelines. They gave 3 possible frameworks that would be used as kind of the cornerstone of the program, and each district had to select from those 3. It was Danielson, Marzano, and Cell 5D. And our district worked along with our PEA partners to come up with which one our district was going to select. We selected the Danielson framework, and we've continued to work with our PEA partners on establishing pieces in what was for a long time a letter of agreement and now is built into our contract about the processes and the timelines and the protocols that go along so that TPEP occurs the same at all buildings. So that was a key piece too. Okay, so we established that, we got our framework, and then we started working through. And to take a look at that Danielson framework, go to the next slide, please. So there are 4 domains in the Danielson framework. The ones on the left, domain 1 and 4, those are non-observables. Those wouldn't be things you would see in a classroom. And on the right side of the framework are the observables. And those are planning and preparation is domain 1, classroom environment is domain 2, instruction is 3, and professional responsibility is 4. So, and under each of those, there are components of those that are each teacher has a rating on and is evaluated on. So if we go to the next slide, this is one of the key pieces to this that's different from the older system is we want clear rubrics that show how you go from one level of proficiency to the next. And it should be very clear that the teacher and the evaluator both are very clear about what should be occurring and what evidence can be collected to then say, okay, this evidence points to, on this component, you might be basic or proficient or distinguished. So, so it starts out at the beginning of the year with the teacher setting some growth goals and working with the evaluator on some growth goals. And then both the evaluator and the teacher collect evidence during the year. Some of that evidence is observable, so it is the supervisor who's collecting the evidence in an observation in the classroom, or it might be lesson plans, or it could be notes from parent conversations. There's other non-observable evidence that's also collected. And so the way this kind of works on the ground would be, okay, so I'm going to be going in and doing an observation of a teacher, and we know what the goals are. And so I go in and collect evidence, and the evidence is really the notes that I take. And as an evaluator, what I'm looking for is what is the teacher doing, and what is the teacher saying, and what are the kids doing, what are the kids saying. So I write that in my notes, and then after the observation, I send those to the teacher. And the teacher can then look through, reflect, and then look at the rubric and say, okay, in this area, from these notes, I was proficient or I was distinguished. So they kind of self-rate, and then they come back together with the supervisor, and then they talk and they say, okay, let's say where are we going to concentrate growth? So maybe the teacher reflected and said, you know, in that lesson, most of my questions were kind of lower level questions. So that's an area I want to work on. So they talk at the meeting, you know, the post-observation meeting. They say, okay, and then next, here's some things we can do to ramp that up. And then 2 weeks later, maybe I'm going to go back in the room and collect some more evidence. And now that teacher is going to have ramped up the level of questioning. So that's how the kind of the evidence relates to the rubric and those conversations, but it's all built around growth. And the only piece I didn't really talk about yet also as part of this process is student growth goals. So they're also, it's not just the teacher growth through that, but there's also, you're going to be collecting evidence of your class and see how they grow during the year. And the one thing about that is you're not kind of penalized if you have a class that's kind of starting out low in the standards at the beginning of the year, because it's all based on growth. If they're growing and making up, then you're still doing fine. So it's the whole process is based on growth and collaboration. So, and Dan is going to tell you about the principal aspect.
Thank you, John. Those are not levels of performance for the principals. So we'll move on to the next slide. Those are actually teacher levels of performance and verbiage that goes with that. Well, first of all, TPEP stands for Teacher and Principal Evaluation Project. So the first P stands for principals. Not unlike the teacher evaluation side, we do have a framework that we're based on with principals. And when I looked at this, I thought, there we go again, and we put an acronym in there. The AWSP stands for the Association of Washington School Principals. So actually the Principals Associated Group for the state is the group that designed the framework that we use, and they've done a wonderful job, and I just want to put a plug in for them because not only did they design the framework, but they are continually supportive and would provide training on it as well. We actually had the executive director out here in August to work with our principals and our staff at our retreat this fall and did some work with us on it. It also has 8 criteria. When John and I work with principals, we have them do a self-assessment at the start of the year. Based on that self-assessment and their data and where their school is at, they do some specific goal setting. Throughout the year, they're gathering data. We're working with them, having conversations, having reflective conversations, and having observations. And so on this first slide, I just wanted to capture that, yes, we do have a similar framework for principals. It does have 8 criteria. We do a self-assessment, and we do various check-ins based on the goals that principals set for themselves at the start of the year. And so just to kind of expedite things, we'll kind of dive into what some of those 8 criteria are. Thank you, Tanya. There's a nice little graphic of those 8 criteria. From where I'm standing, I can't read that graphic, but it's in front of me as well. I'll let you read that. But within that 8 criteria, there are 31 components. So most of the criteria have anywhere between 3 and, well, they all have between 3 and 5 components. So I share that with you just because it's not just the big 8. There's complexities, and it breaks down certain expectations within those 8 criteria through the components. I started counting the elements that were associated with each component, and I stopped quickly because there are a lot of descriptors and elements within each of those as well. What I would call your attention to is, thank you, Tanya, for providing the handout that you all have. I think in addition to that, I wanted to give you, instead of giving you a graphic on the screen that shows all of the 8 criteria and all of the components within them, you do have that to refer to. I don't want to spend a tremendous amount of time on that tonight, but I did want to provide you with that information so you can see how each of those 8 criteria are broken down. The next slide that Tanya's moved on to has a typo on it. There are 3 data-driven criteria that we work with principals very closely on. If I can find the right slide, I'll talk about those. Those 3 data-driven criteria are actually criterion 3, which is not creating a culture. That's my typo. It's actually planning with data. Earlier this year, you had an opportunity to see what principals had done with SIP plans. Really, the planning with data criteria, criterion 3, is really based around gathering multiple data points, multiple sources for data, and creating a plan for improvement around those multiple data points. We like to talk with principals around, that's kind of the aggregate data piece that we ask them to gather. Criterion 5 is about improving instruction. And when we talk about improving instruction, kind of the brief on that one is principals will select a subgroup of teachers to work with. And they'll set a goal around a subgroup of teachers. John referred to teachers gathering data. When a principal selects a subgroup of teachers, the principal likes to tell them, hey, your data is my data. I'm going to report your data as a part of my data to Dan or to John to show how we've grown. Subgroups of teachers could be grade level teachers at the elementary. It could be a department at the secondary level. I've got principals who say, my subgroup of teachers I'm going to focus on are all of my first year teachers, and I'm going to spend some extra time, effort, and a little TLC to work with that subgroup of teachers. The third data-oriented criterion is criterion 8. It's called closing the gap. Principals look at their data around specific populations. Where are we coming up short? Where are our gaps? Are those gaps around students with disabilities? Are they around our English language learners? Are they around 9th graders with failing grades? And then they set goals around how they're going to close those gaps, and they associate the strategies for us with those, and we monitor that data throughout the year. Those are the 3 data-oriented criterion. One thing we should talk about is when principals first start in a system, they're on comprehensive evaluation, which means they are evaluated on all 3 of those criterion, data-oriented criterion. When they move to what we call focused, we ask them to select one so that they can really focus in and drill down on that. Next slide talks about the other 5 criterion. They are also important, and we've talked about those formally or informally at board meetings. Whether we knew it or not, that's what we were working on. And so criterion 1 is talks about creating a culture in your school building through your leadership, where there is a clear vision of where you're going and a shared mission. Criterion 2 we've talked about is about safety. And that's ensuring physical safety as well as social, emotional, and intellectual safety. Criterion 4 is aligning a curriculum, working with teachers and staff to make sure that we are teaching to state standards. We're aligning curriculum and assessment to state standards. Criterion 6 is managing resources. That would be primarily human resources and financial resources. And then criterion 7 is engaging families and partnering with the community. And again, on that one pager, you'll see all the components that make up those. And so those are quite important. The data ones we focus on quite a bit because that's about students and how they're growing. Students don't grow well unless we're doing these other pieces. If we're not ensuring physical and social emotional safety, it's hard to move students on those academic data growth goals. Tanya, next one. Finally, I just wanted to give you one snapshot of what the framework looks like. This is a sample level of proficiency. This is under creating a culture. This is criterion 1 and component 1.3. And you'll notice there are a couple of things that say element there on the left side, and not unlike the teacher rubric, you see descriptions of what would be unsatisfactory, what would be basic, what would be proficient, and what would be distinguished. So I lay that out there, and that it's all pretty complex. Being a principal is a really complex job. The AWSP framework does a great job of identifying those criterion and the components that make them up. And when you really dig down into the elements, it's pretty complex, and it's complex work. And I'm going to go ahead and speak for John and say we both really enjoy working on the leadership aspect with our principals. And on that note, we're going to hand it off to Mary.
Thanks, Dan. So another piece of teacher growth is specific around first-year teachers. So in Peninsula School District, we receive something called the Beginning Educator Support Team from a grant from OSPI. It's got the best name because we call it the best, and I'll tell you, I live that up. I grab onto that, and everything's the best in my world. So we have a lot of best. What BEST does is it allows for a comprehensive support program for our novice teachers. Mostly I focus on our first-year teachers, but it really is our first through third-year teachers. And I just want you to take a moment and think about our third-year teachers for a moment. They started their career in the fall of 2019, and they were going strong. It was a great year, and then March 2020 happened. So they didn't finish a regular year. They had the weirdest year ever. Last year, they had the weirdest second year ever. Hybrid, being in person, being fully remote. It was just crazy. And now this year, even though it's still weird pandemic, it's been an odd third year. So those third year teachers have had some really different support needs this year, along with our second year teachers, absolutely, and our first year teachers. But this year, we have 3 groups that have some really distinct needs. We started our program in the fall of 2015. That's when we received our first OSPI grant for the BEST program. And I've been lucky enough to be able to be part of the BEST program and leading the BEST program for that entire time. This year we received our biggest grant ever. We received $116,500 for the grant. So that was our largest grant. We're really, we've been excited with what we could do this year for those teachers. All of our program, our entire program, is based off of some standards that were set by OSPI for the BEST program. It's the standards for beginning educator induction. Within those standards, there are multiple different parts. We have 6 different pieces. And to tie into what John was talking about with our teacher evaluation program and with the Danielson framework, most of what you see up here, these pieces, are based on and kind of organized around the Danielson framework and the components within the framework. So, for example, you saw on the screen, the engaging students in learning was one of the components that John pulled out. If we look up here, when I run my orientation for first-year teachers, it's an extra day of orientation that these first-year teachers get. Part of that is based on, we talk about engaging students in learning. When I work with teachers and I go out and I observe them and see how they're doing and give them some feedback, at least one of the times that I go out and work with teachers, I base all of those feedback notes on engaging students in learning. We run professional learning each month. Each month the new teachers get together and we have some time together, and at least one of those sessions is based on engaging students in learning. So you can see that we pull from that framework so that teachers can grow in those areas, and then their evaluator can see that and help them grow in those areas as well. So it's really trying to bring those 2 pieces together so it's cohesive for them. Some data for you. We have 26 first-year teachers this year. It's our second biggest group that we've ever had. We have 9 second-year teachers and 13 third-year teachers. In the last 4 years, and let me back up for a second. We have had this program for 7 years, but it took about 3 years to really get it up and running. So if we look at the 4 years where we've really had this comprehensive program, we've retained between 85 and 100% each year of our novice teachers. So looking at going from first to second year and then second to third year. You oftentimes will hear stats like 25% of teachers leave in the first 3 years of teaching. In Washington State, we're a little better than that. About 20% of teachers in statewide leave teaching in those first 3 years. So you can see that in all of those years, even our lowest retention rates beat the state numbers, which is pretty great. And all of those teachers this year, in some way throughout the day, serve about 5,297 of our students. So you can see that these novice teachers have a big impact on the kids throughout our whole entire district. And I always like to bring this quote whenever I get to talk about BEST. This comes from the person who used to run the BEST program at OSPI. Her name's Marcy Yoshida. She likes to say, what we do for our new teachers, we do for their students. So all those kids that I just talked about, what we get to do through the BEST program, we do for those kiddos. That's what I've got for you. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Anybody have questions?
Yep. Well, first off, thank you for presenting tonight. I'm probably the only board member that even knows what TPEP is, since it's been around for a while. During this study session on curriculum, we went around and also for the SIP plans, I'm going to just put them together. I won't say who said anything to me, but I asked someone in the study session if we still had TPEP, if we were still using TPEP, because I hadn't heard about it in so long. And this person said, yeah, it was still being used. And I said, is it being used effectively? And this person was honest enough to say that they believe that it could be done better, and that it was, and that could be due to the pandemic or not. And so I would like to have you talk a little bit. I know you don't want to go to a lot of talk, but around accountability of performance. Okay, you have these 5, I don't remember what they are, but distinguished and proficient and in basic or whatever. A lot of businesses have, if you're not doing your job, they'll put you on a performance plan. Often it's a 90-day performance plan, and then at the end of 90 days, if you haven't risen up to your basic level, they let you go. Okay, a lot of those are non-union, so they have a little different opportunity to do that. But I'd like to know, what is the accountability on a teacher that maybe just got into the position and they're just maybe not cut out for it, and they haven't seen it yet, but you do. How do you get them from basic to proficient to the next steps, and what's the accountability if you aren't successful in doing that? And then, so that's one of my questions. One of the reasons I really want to ask that is because of what this person told me at that study session, and also some conversations I've had during our strategic plan from some parents about comments or lack of support out in the schools. And these are being told to me directly during these meetings. I'm not making these up. So I would like to know accountability of what happens if teachers aren't meeting their goals, okay? And honestly, I'd like you to answer those questions. And then I know that the principals are the ones that are tasked at going out into the classrooms and evaluating these teachers, correct? Okay, so I know you just said principals' jobs are very complex, very challenging. During COVID, but even before COVID, it's a complex job, a lot of moving parts. How are the principals finding the time to get into the classrooms and effectively evaluate the teachers? And then if they need to put them on some kind of a performance plan to get them to that next level, how are they supported as a principal to make sure that their teachers are doing the best job that they can? Okay, it's a multi-level question, obviously. And then, how are the two of you the ones that do the principal's evaluations? Okay, and then the same question to you. That's a lot for you, okay, for you to do for your principals, okay? So I'd like to know how do you work with a struggling principal that needs a little extra support, in addition to all the other stuff that you do in your job? How do you help them get through this 32 data points in there? And that's I'm going to leave it at that. I gave you a lot.
I'll start with a couple pieces for that. First of all, we mentioned that there's a career continuum. So for teachers and principals, for both teachers and principals, the first couple of years, a basic level of proficiency is considered okay. That's normal. You're learning at those times. You're trying to grow. Eventually, you have to level up to the proficient level. I would say 99.9% of our staff do that by the time they get to that third year. If they're struggling, then we have supports that can come in and help with those teachers, and same with principals. We work with our union with the teachers to make sure that we have plans of improvement in place. And for the most part, we are able to make that move. Sometimes teachers and principals decide that, you know, maybe this isn't the profession for me. If they see that when they're in these conversations and they're seeing the ratings and saying, well, maybe this isn't what I want to do. But that, again, I think it's very rare. We have good retention from our teachers. So, Deanne, you want to add anything to that?
Very briefly, I would just say whether it's teachers or principals, the goal is growth. And not everybody's hitting the mark right off the bat. And so principals do for teachers what we try to do for principals. We've got some language to tie to. We try to get them to analyze and assess themselves and say, you know, how did that go? Where do you think that went? There's a lot of questioning and coaching, and sometimes it becomes from questioning and coaching to telling and expectations, but the goal is still growth. So that's kind of just how I would couch that. How do you find time to do it? I think principals would readily admit that it was difficult this year. We spent so much time with COVID protocols early on, and we've been catching up since then. What I would tell you is we've spent the last month and a half or 2 months, and UDL was mentioned earlier. We've been able to dive back into instruction, and it's been so refreshing for principals and the rest of us that we're moving from protocols to instruction and effective instruction. And they're looking forward to incorporating some of that towards the end of this year, but really diving in more deeply next year. But yeah, it's been difficult for them to find time this year. And I would admit for myself anyway, and probably for John, yeah, we've been doing a lot of the same, but we are really scheduling ourselves out. Some of it is intentionality of your calendar to make sure you're getting out and you're able to sit down and have a face-to-face with folks.
I know you didn't ask me, but I've been around the block a lot, and pretty expert at the TPEP program, both with the educators, and started way back with Michaela and Dr. Koval way back when that was just an idea and an opportunity for districts to jump in and try some things that were different. The really nice thing about the TPEP program is it's very explicit. So like when Mary has a new teacher, the rubric is just very important that all parties know and understand it. They do rater reliability, they highlight information, they talk about some of those words. If you looked at some of those words, they can be soft. I don't know if you can pop in. I don't know where she went. What happened to Tanya? She disappeared like Cinderella. But if you look at those actual, rubrics, okay, yeah, whoa, okay, so if you look at this, they're like virtually all students are intellectually engaged in challenging content through, those are things they have to be pulled apart, and Mary does that with the staff, but it's also our responsibility with the principals to pull apart all the rubrics to know and understand so that it's agreed upon, so there's no surprises. This is not a gotcha. This is we want you all to be the very best that you can be. And so that's what the goals are around. It's a very collaborative opportunity, and it builds trust, but it also builds efficacy. I'm thinking I have 3 of my 5 children through marriage and my own, are educators. And I remember when they started and they were so worried. And I said, listen, this is not a gotcha. This isn't like a, declined. It's okay to start in basic when you're first trying. Anybody that's ever taught their first year, you think you're ready, and then you get in front of students and you realize there are things, just like in childbirth, right? And raising a child, you think you're ready, and you learn that not everything is in the book. So I just want hats off to Mary, to our education associations, and to our leaders here, because this is a collaborative, this is an amazing system that is supporting and growing our teachers. And I think you heard a lot. I mean, we saw,
young kids, and all those teachers, even if they're not veteran, are held to the same standard. So it's pretty exciting work, but it's also pretty in-depth. A rate of reliability, and then you get tested, like, it's pretty rigorous, and I should probably redo it, right? It's been a few years. Even the AWSP, they came out last year and they have revised it. So having the opportunity to do it often together is really important.
One quick word on workload. So I don't think we mentioned the difference between comprehensive and focused. So you start out your first 2 or 3 years in either principals or teachers in the comprehensive, where you're collecting evidence on all 8 criteria. But then if you're rated at proficient, then you can go to a focus plan where you're only concentrating on one of those, and that really helps. And in fact, at first, you had to stay on focus for 3 years and then cycle back to comprehensive, and then the state kind of realized the workload issue, and they extended that from 3 to 5 years. So now, once you kind of pass the comprehensive part of it and you get proficient, you get 5 years on focus before you cycle back to the comprehensive.
As they progress, and this might be something that you want to share with the community and the parents that you've been hearing about, maybe the levels of support, because as you move from proficient to distinguished, really the key differentiation between that is the fact that the teachers are giving the students the opportunity to lead and engage in their own learning and to struggle through challenging pieces. And so education has changed a little bit from when I was in school and other things where you filled out your times table and you know, there were just very rote memorization and different things. And so now what you demonstrated from our students at Pioneer and in all of our other schools, what the kids are being asked to do cognitively and to integrate and use all of the different pieces that we used to learn in isolation is a lot more complex, and teachers are trying to be masterful in doing that. And so I think that maybe that's some opportunity for education in our community about what we are trying to see in our students as they are critical thinkers and how they apply their skills. So thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, Jennifer.
Okay, thank you. Your last comment, John, about the comprehensive and then the focus really helped, because it just, looking at this and knowing what a principal and a teacher, but principals specifically to this conversation, do in a day, it seems impossible. So basic question, well, how many average teachers do we have at each school level? So for example, like, what is the principal responsible for? So in elementary school, we have 18 to 20 teachers on average for school, but what are we at middle school and high schools?
I'm looking at my colleagues, but yeah, probably between 18 and 25 at the elementary. And when you think about middle, roughly between 20 and 35, and then there's 2 administrators there, so you split those up.
Okay.
And then at the high schools, anywhere between 65 to 75, split between 3 administrators.
Okay.
So you're probably an average of about 20 folks that they evaluate each year.
Okay. A question about especially the data-driven pieces that you were talking about. A lot of what's on here, we survey our students as well. We're looking at, closing the gaps and looking at, you talked about 9th graders who are failing, or EL students, or attitudes towards school safety. With all of these different evaluations and testing programs and surveys that we do, is there anything in our state that ties it together for us so we can evaluate a teacher on closing gap and compare it to our own student performance and see if that's aligning?
We're always looking at which one's going to take that. That's a great question. How I would answer that is most everything is nested. When you look at our broad scores from the state, how do our buildings make up our district level scores? And there's some variations. And then within that, how do each teacher's scores or each department scores make up those, and how do they all contribute? It's interesting that you mentioned what we survey students on around some things as well. I have at least one principal who has selected students' feelings of self-efficacy and grit based on the panorama data that they're working on, and that's the data point that particular principal is pulling.
Okay.
So they do try to nest within the things we're doing. It only makes sense to try to nest stuff within itself. We'll have principals who will nest a particular group of students, perhaps within a department, so that they're nesting that work and they can really focus that work.
Okay. And then just one
Natalie,
curiosity
can I expand on that a little bit?
Sure.
You know, one of the most important things is data can be used within, so if I'm a teacher and let's say I'm a math teacher and I want to use data in my own evaluation, you have to remember the gamut of preschool all the way to 12th grade when we're thinking about data. So what would data look like in an art teacher in elementary, right, compared to a calculus teacher in high school? So that's why when you look at the rubric, it really is about mastery of a variety of different components, right, and then the elements. I can't remember if they're called elements or components. I don't know. Element?
Criterion. Components, elements.
There we go. Okay, so all of the above.
It's not even alphabetical order. I know.
Staff, so I was a science teacher, I would be using data that both came in formative assessment, right, in my classroom, as well as anything that I wanted to be able to use. So when you talk about data, it's opportunities for people to show evidence around meeting the needs of that. But you also have to remember, you know, our TK teachers, what they're going to show as data will be very different than like your AP chemistry teachers. So we have to take into account that there's a whole spectrum of learning throughout the pre-K 12, and so this is like it's a level playing field. So like you were asking about data, why can't we just use student data, right, to evaluate? Well, what would that look like in preschool?
Not in place of, but are we comparing? So if a student at a school, so if a principal's looking at the whole thing at a school, students say, I feel this way, but the evaluations show, I think you're doing a great job on the student safety, but they're not. Does it always match? Is what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
Again, I think it goes back to being. It's really about that class's growth.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to be comparing a third grade teacher at Artendale to a third grade teacher at another school or another district or the nation or any other. It's going to be those kids in that class. Where did they start and how are they progressing?
Right. And then this is out of my curiosity, because we have heard so much, and we did tonight, about student behaviors and how this year looks so different from past years, and our students are just dealing with a lot more, and they're acting out differently. So let's say you have a veteran teacher who is distinguished in classroom management in a second grade classroom, and then this year we have chaos. How is that reflected in an evaluation? Do we take that into account, knowing that this is just a very different world?
Yes. I mean, I think the context is really important.
Right.
And so from the evaluator's point of view, I think they're very good at understanding that a challenging class, what it looks like for a teacher to be at those levels based on the context of the class that they're dealing with. So, and then from Dan's point of view, same with a school. If a school is having challenges, and we heard about some of that tonight, then maybe you can look at that and say, based on that context, are we seeing improvement? Are we seeing growth?
Still looking for improvement.
Yeah.
So we're just always at a different starting point.
And so I'll just add something, and I hope it resonates. We've been talking about it a lot this year. We talk about teachers differentiating for students in the classroom. We also have principals who understand each classroom context and differentiate the support to each teacher. And we have been looking closely at each building and saying, how do we differentiate the support to each building, knowing whatever context they're working in. Not to go down this road too far, but there's the phrase, equality and equity are two different things. If we give everything equal, then we're not differentiating. So at the classroom level for teacher to students, at the building level for principals to teachers, and at the district level for us to principals, we have to realize what the context is and where the challenges are, and we have to differentiate our support at all three of those levels.
An observation and then just a couple quick questions. I'm still trying to get my head around that retention rate for the first through third year teachers. I mean, that is, to me, that just is like way outside the norm from everything, at least I'm hearing, and I think we're hearing about teacher retention, particularly within that experience level of teachers, right? And so it just got me to thinking because, you know, as a parent, I had my daughter came in as a kindergartner 2019. And she had a first-year teacher, and going through this whole new landscape of moving to online and whatnot, and I watched how she responded to this, and she was exceptional. And I looked at my kind of some of my friends that had teachers, kids at other schools, different teachers, more veteran teachers, and it was almost like to me it was like this first-year teacher who's had her whole was almost excelling, right? And now she's in year 3, right? And I just wonder if there's something to be said for those new teachers who came on during the pandemic who actually had no blueprint, and their ability, that actually being in a strange way sort of an asset to adapt to COVID because they didn't really have a normal to begin with. And where I'm going with this is there's no going back, right? Like online learning is here, kind of distance learning. Like it would be a shame if we threw out all of the things we learned during COVID, right? Is there any way to potentially sort of capture what these new teachers learned? Because I wouldn't be surprised in seeing those numbers that they, because they didn't have some of these more ingrained expectations of what the learning environment would look like, they really could be a resource going forward. I mean, I don't know, that was just, I was surprised by that.
Absolutely. So I can tell you that during that spring of 2020, it was those first-year teachers who ended up being the leaders in how to move on to online learning. A lot of those teachers, not every, but a lot of those teachers had online classes in some way when they were becoming teachers, so they had been students in that platform, whereas plenty of veteran teachers, myself included, had never taken an online course, so we didn't know what they look like, and now we're having to teach one. So that was definitely a time where those teachers got to step up into some really great leadership roles that normally a first-year teacher wouldn't get to have. So that part was really exciting for them to see. And then I've also seen those the current third and second-year teachers take a lot of the things that they learned into their classrooms this year, and then also talk to their teams and share what they're doing with the teams that they work with in their school. So their job alike other teachers to share those things with those teachers. So I do think that learning from the pandemic that those new teachers had is carrying forward into this year. I will tell you, just to level set, I have had more first-year teachers this year say to me, Mary, I'm not sure that I'm cut out for this. So they're giving it their all this year.
Yeah.
So they are giving it their all. They are working incredibly hard. They are, many of them are thriving. But I've had that conversation with more teachers this year than I've ever had in the past. So I don't, to be honest, I don't know what those numbers are going to look like if I get to present to you guys in the future. So that is one thing to know.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then just a couple of the questions that kind of goes back to Natalie's point about, this whole conversation around data and things that are observable and not observable. And so in our meetings with the community, there's sort of, to me, there's a tension, right? We've got the three criteria that you went over that are very measurable from, test scores and surveys and things like that. But what we hear and what we talk about, right, are these very difficult to measure things. And I'm looking particularly at criteria 1 for the AWPS, this creating a culture, right? And how on earth, right, like that ineffable thing that we all know it when we're in it, and our students know it, our parents, our community know it. How do you get your hands around that as part of this evaluation process? Because it's like, yeah, this is a lot of stuff, but it's like, is any of it actually hitting that mark, right? Like,
yeah, I'll use one example. There's an elementary school that the principal, criteria 1 is his goal area, and so beginning at the year he said, okay, ask that question: how am I going to measure? How am I going to know if I'm changing the culture, or if me, as a staff, we're changing the culture? And worked hard with his leadership team on that. And so they did some surveys, and they gathered some exit slips from some trainings, and they got those kind of pieces of data that then he can track through the year.
Awesome. Just a real quick question. I actually, I think I know the answer. This is something fascinating that I learned during the study session, that one of them, but because it wasn't streamed, I'm going to ask it so that others can learn the same thing if you don't already know. If they're, kind of to your point about how it's not a gotcha, if there is, say, a first-year teacher, or really in this environment, it could be a veteran teacher, it could be anyone. Let's use just the issue of classroom management. Maybe I'm teaching and I'm thinking, I need some help, like I need some strategies for how to deal, no matter how long I've taught, can I sort of, without not initiating the whole process, but is there a way for me as a teacher to get, do some of this kind of in reverse without fear of it becoming a negative review or going in my personnel file, or I don't know how it, clearly I'm not an educator, I don't know how that works, but is that a resource available?
Go for it. Yeah, absolutely. So novice teachers, so first, second, third year, I encourage them to always contact me if they've got a concern in their classroom. Sometimes with a new teacher, I might bring something that I see as a concern, hey, we need to talk about this. Half the time I do that, the teacher's already yeah, I know my classroom management's kind of not great right now and we need to talk about it. So they usually know. And so I encourage them to reach out to me, especially if they get some feedback maybe from their evaluator that says, hey, this is an area you need to work on. Let me know that. As a teacher, colleague, my work with a teacher is confidential. I get to work with the teacher, give them thoughts, have a conversation with them, a problem-solving conversation with them, and then I leave them and they do their work, and I'm there for them if they need me again, but I don't go talk to their principal and say, hey, yeah, I'm really concerned about, X, Y, and Z in this classroom. It's just a confidential there to help that teacher out and to help that teacher grow their own practice. For a veteran teacher, while I'm not working with those teachers as closely, I'm always available for a veteran teacher, and I let veteran teachers know that, but is also the rest of the instructional facilitator team that we have within PSD. So we're always there to help teachers out, again, in that coach or mentor kind of role where we're here for the teacher, we're here to help that teacher improve, and it's a confidential, safe space to grow a practice. So multiple avenues for folks to get some help.
And there is
Awesome.
kind of sometimes referred to as a firewall between Mary and Dan and I. So she doesn't, from her conversations, then tell us things about performance. So.
Great, thank you so much.
Lori, can I just add?
Yes, please.
There's also, I'm thinking subject-specific assistance. Mary, could you just talk about maybe instructional coach support?
Absolutely. So I'm part of this team of other instructional facilitators. I work with K-12 or really pre-K-12, any subject area. But we also have Kelly Pruitt, who works with specifically elementary literacy and social studies. Chaya Venkatesh, she works with K-12 math. We have Ashley Stolhand, who works 6 through 12 in English language arts and social studies. Ashley Ortenzo, who you'll be hearing from soon, works with K-12 STEM. And then we also have two amazing digital learning coaches, Angie May and Donna Squires, who work with, again, K-12, any subject, and really focusing on how do we integrate technology into classrooms.
So one of the, I've mentioned accountability a couple times, and the school board's accountable to our community, school district's accountable to our community and our students and our teachers. And so, I mentioned teacher accountability to make sure that they're doing their job as proficient as they can. Sometimes you work as hard as you can and you don't do it right. I'd also like to talk about principal accountability, and that sort of goes backwards to what you asked the same question. You just did it backwards. Is the way I was going to do it is, how does a principal know, or I guess what I want to say is, how does a teacher, if that is not feeling supported by a principal, because say the principal isn't doing the TPEP program effectively, what is a recourse for a teacher that feels that he or she is not getting the support they need from the principal, do they contact you? And then just to add to that is TPEP professional development, the people that are doing the evaluations, the principals and you folks, is what kind of ongoing training do you get and the principals get to make sure you're doing the TPEP program as best as possible?
So, David, I can answer one part of that question, then I'm going to hot potato it over here to one of these guys. So I, for the professional development, I am lucky enough to be part of a network of people who support TPEP throughout the whole state, as well as BEST. And one of the things that we do is we learn about new things that are coming our way and getting the best professional development on that. So, for example, the student growth goals that John mentioned earlier, the rubrics for those have been recently updated, and they've been updated to include more a better focus on diversity and inclusion and equity for our students. And so in a couple of weeks, I'm attending a training with Carol Rivera. We're attending together about how do we implement those rubrics well within our school district. So there's a lot of things that are offered by the state throughout the year so that we can stay up to date on what any changes that are coming for TPEP.
And for evaluators, it's both best practice and required by law that we continue to provide training for them to for greater reliability and improve in their process. What that might have looked like before pandemic was, principals going into a classroom, collecting data together, and then processing that so they make sure that they're seeing and rating along the same lines. That hasn't happened in a couple of years, but we'll be getting back to that. There's other trainings available as well. So yeah, that is something that we have to do and do.
Great. Thank you, Mary, John, and Dan. We appreciate it. There's no old business, so new business tonight is high school science curriculum adoption. This is going to be our first reading, and we have Melissa Wisner and Ashley Ortenzo presenting for us.
Good evening. We'd like to introduce to you for your first reading for approval the high school biology adoption. It is Ashley will go through the work that she's done with the teachers over the course of many months, and it has gone to IAC, the Instructional Advisory Committee, where it was approved for recommendation to bring to you for recommendation. So I'm going to turn it over to Ashley and let her walk you through the process.
Thanks for your time tonight. I know it's getting on the late end, so I will do my best to be brief, but there's a key piece in the middle that I want to make sure you get a chance to see. So the biology team, through the whole process, we have come to the consensus to recommend the Inquiry Hub biology curriculum, usually called iHub. It's put out by University of Colorado Boulder and a collaborative of teachers there. It is an open educational resource, so that means the whole curriculum is freely available online. It's not something the district has to purchase. The funding end of this adoption request comes in professional learning and support for teachers and support for other materials and equipment that you can imagine you would need to have a robust hands-on biology experience in the high school classroom. Just a quick review. I'm going to zoom right through this. Next generation science standards focus around three-dimensional instruction. So those three dimensions are disciplinary core ideas, the science facts, the stuff we all memorized with flashcards when we learned science. Science and engineering practices, what do scientists actually do? How do they collect data? How do they conduct investigations? And the cross-cutting concepts, how do scientists think about things? They find patterns. They look for how change affects a system, things like that. And we tie all of those together in the classroom by using authentic phenomena and problems, things students can see in their world, in their community, to pull all that learning together and give it a grounding that helps them really internalize the knowledge. Quick overview of the timeline and the process. Like all things that we've done lately, of course, COVID changed how this was supposed to go. I should have been here talking with you about this a year ago, but it was important to do the process well, not quickly. So in the winter of 2020, shortly after I joined the district, we clearly identified a need for adoption of new materials pretty much across the board in high school science. Most of the materials that are sitting in classrooms today, as far as textbooks and that kind of materials, have been there since before next generation science standards were adopted. So they're not even aligned to our current standards. In the spring of 2020 through the winter of 2021, leadership team from both high school buildings met together to plan and organize the process, look for options, and pre-screen those materials. That group got the list down to 5 curricular options for each content area: biology, chemistry, and physics. And then we brought teachers on board at that point to look at those 5 different materials and really dig in. How do they address the standards? How do they support 3-dimensional instruction and learning? All of those teams picked their top 2 favorites that did the best job of meeting the standards that they anticipated would do the best job of meeting the needs of Peninsula students, and we piloted those this past fall. The biology team got together in early February, I don't remember the date off the top of my head, to look at all the data that we collected during the pilot. Student achievement data, students' impression of the work, the daily feedback that teachers get from students. We all get very clear feedback from their students about what works for them and what does not work for them. And the iHub curriculum came out as the clear winner to do the best to meet the needs of Peninsula students as far as meeting the standards, and giving teachers a real chance to dive into that 3-dimensional instruction in new and really exciting ways. We took that to IAC, they approved it. I'm here talking to you. We've had one of our community information nights last week. Unfortunately, nobody showed up, but that's all right. The good news is we've had over 230 unique views on our website that highlights the curriculum. There's a video there for families to watch. Because it's an OER, an open educational resource that's freely available, anyone can click through and look at every single lesson plan down to the last nitty-gritty detail. It's all out there. There's no surprises. We're not keeping anything secret. So I feel, despite not having, in-person feedback from the community, I'm pretty confident that people have had a real opportunity to really dig in. I'm also presenting to the Parent District Council next week, and then we have our second community information night on May 4th. And all that information is on the adoption website. So maybe folks out there still streaming, if you're still hanging in there, come on by on May 4th. So this is the key piece. I want you to hear from the real experts.
My name is Susan Deeds, and I work here at Gig Harbor High School teaching biology. And we've been teaching out of the iHub curriculum over the last 2 years. This is our second year doing it. And I've noticed a big shift in students not just learning about content, and just content, but also learning how science works, looking at science process skills. And students are able to do that through this curriculum. And it's done a really good job allowing us to bring skills such as modeling or the analysis of data into the students' learning in a way that is really interesting to them.
We do a lot of hands-on activities which help better understand the curriculum and what we're doing and how we're learning. We learn a lot about the real world in biology and how all the projects and labs that we do relate to
I'm Anna Munkers. I teach science here at the high school, Gig Harbor High School. This is my 19th year teaching, and so I've been teaching biology for a really long time. And I just have to say that iHub has really changed, I think, the way that we teach students biology. Because in the past it was this topic, this topic, this topic. It was, let's teach about cells, okay, done. Let's teach about molecules, okay, done. Let's teach about ecology, and it was just not connected. There was no what's the word? Force to bring it together, cohesion. And now, like, we just teach biology through these big overarching themes, and I can just show excitement about it. So we start off with ecology, and we travel to the Serengeti, and I put on these videos, and they see the giraffes and the elephants and the wildebeest, and we kind of can immerse ourselves in these different areas. Each unit has this big overarching umbrella where we can teach biology through that, and so the cohesiveness is there, and it's just really changed the way I teach.
All the labs that we did and like the little experiments really helped to like expand my knowledge kind of, because you actually get to do like hands-on work, not just like reading about it. So I thought that was really cool.
Hands-on is the best type of.
Hi, I am Isabella Antonelli at Gig Harbor High, and I personally really like our curriculum. I like how it's all organized into like this nice little packet, how it's very interactive with the labs and asking you questions throughout it about any questions you have or what you think we should explore next.
Hi, I'm Dina Berkey. I'm a biology teacher at Gig Harbor High School, and I am so excited that we have been using the biology iHub curriculum in our classrooms. Additionally, iHub uses real data. It's not made up, it's not forced, it's real data and real scenarios, so the students feel like they're doing authentic science work, which they are, as they move through the curriculum.
These models are about trees and photosynthesis and cellular respiration. And we did this for a test, and yeah.
They help to explain the process on how trees absorb and take in carbon dioxide and how they release oxygen. They also help to show how humans alter and affect the atmosphere.
Yeah. How is using a model different than how you take tests in other classes?
So you can explain it like more, like with like pictures and stuff like that instead of just words. So it makes it easier to explain it. I'd say it can help you like visualize and like kind of draw your concepts maybe, because some might be better at drawing than writing. So yeah.
It gives you more of a range to actually like do what you want to instead of like actual tests and how it's like strictly organized. You have the freedom to just draw and design whatever you want to when you use the model.
2, 1.
Hi, I'm Brody Kaskin. I'm in the 9th grade. We do modeling. It's cool. I like the modeling process because I got to do in chronological order my ideas and how I form them, and modeling gives me a better way to demonstrate what I learned. I like modeling better than testing because I feel less pressure, and also I get to do things my way and show with arrows and everything.
One of the reasons that I really enjoy the iHub curriculum is because it's made more obvious to me the 3 different dimensions of the next generation science standards. I was brought up in a time where you basically had to learn and memorize everything, and you just were looking to get points all the time, but this curriculum really has students diving in a lot deeper, trying to understand not just concepts in the disciplinary core ideas, but also trying to understand cross-cutting concepts between different standards and also science and engineering practices. And I think it's the science and engineering practices and cross-cutting concepts that has made it so that some of my students that I would have had in the past are now able to make their learning and understanding more visible and more alive, whereas when they took a traditional test in the past, they might not have felt like they could memorize enough to be able to succeed, but now it's more of showing what they know and applying it to real world situations.
Taking the model, really, I feel the model expresses what you know more, and the test is just blank answers, and you might not get all the information from the student from just a test. I think they would express everything they know through the model and all the effort that they put in. Like here, I think I can show everything I know about the unit from here instead of just a test writing A, B, C, or D.
Hi, Gary Knowles. I teach biology at Peninsula, and I'm really excited about the iHub biology curriculum that we've decided to adopt. I've had some experience in this style of teaching before, and I have found through about 4 years of work that it's really, really helpful to all of my students, but specifically students who are traditionally underserved, immigrant populations, EL students, students that might be struggling readers and writers. They get to model their understanding of complicated real-world phenomena in a way that allows them access to the curriculum, allows them to show their ideas any way that they want to, and it really centers around 21st century skills of collaboration, critical thinking, and connection making through the building of scientific and engineering practices that will be directly applicable to whatever they decide to do, not just science or STEM fields moving forward.
And just content, but my name is Susan Deeds, and I work here at Gig Harbor High School teaching biology. And
Yeah, there are more slides. There we go. So to kind of sum up what you heard from the experts, our key points of why we're really excited to bring iHub to biology in Peninsula. It's an open educational resource which opens up a lot of opportunities for providing additional supports for teachers and students, both when it comes to materials and professional learning for teachers. The other thing that's great about open educational resources is they are updated a lot more frequently than a traditional textbook from a traditional publisher, because they're always getting worked on. They're easy to revise. Everything's out there. It basically comes as one giant Google Doc, so teachers can do easy modifications to support whatever learning needs they have in their classrooms. The unique storyline approach really brings in that three-dimensional learning and helps students see that phenomena to connect to the real world. There is strong support in the curriculum for all student voices. Like you heard the kids talking about, I get to show what I know in a way that works for me. And there's a large focus during instruction on discourse between students. They get to talk to each other about their ideas and use that discourse to help them make sense of what they're learning. The other really exciting piece is having a consistent curriculum in all biology classrooms in both high schools opens up a whole new avenue for cross-building collaboration, and I like to use the phrase cross-pollination. You know, we get everybody's good ideas flowing back and forth between our buildings, so we can bring equitable opportunities to all of our students. Real quickly, I have not forgotten about all the other sciences at the high school. There are more. Chemistry and physics, they did pilot in the fall, but the teachers and the students were not happy with either of the choices we piloted. And, you know, in the past, you might have been told you got to pick one, but that's not, we need to choose something that's actually going to work for our students and our teachers. So we took a step back. So chemistry and physics are reconvening in May and early June to take another look at what other options are out there, do a lot more research, talk to other districts surrounding what's working for them, what can we find that might work, and we're going to do phase 2 of a pilot with new materials in the fall. Two relatively new courses that have only been around for a few years in the district are conceptual chemistry and conceptual physics. So taking those big ideas from chemistry and physics, but teaching them with a little less of a quantitative focus, because we find that math skills tend to be a real barrier to students achieving in chemistry and physics the way they've been traditionally taught. So that's another course that we're continuing to dig in around what curricular supports do teachers need to make those as awesome as they can be. And of course, we have a lot of other science electives that are offered in our buildings: marine science, freshwater science, anatomy and physiology. We have all sorts of different things. We're not forgetting about them, but it's important, like you heard Aaron talk about earlier, we have to have a clear vision of where those electives fall in the graduation pathway. Why would a student take that course? How does it get them on their path to their goal, so that we can be strategic about the supports we provide for electives and who needs what when. That's it. Questions?
I have only one, and
Go ahead.
I appreciate the student voice aspect of this, but I'm curious about the parent voice. Of the, how many views? 241?
233, I
Okay.
think it was. Let
Okay.
me find, I've got it.
Do
in
we
my notes here
know
somewhere.
if those
Yeah,
views
233.
were from students or from parents?
There's no way to tell that, right? Because it's just like the unique IP address. It doesn't tell us
Okay.
the age of the person who looked at the web page.
So if the school board wanted to go, or between now and approval, and I know hopefully you'll have some people at the May event.
Yeah, I hope
but
so.
If the school board wanted to go and review these materials.
Please.
Where do we find it?
It's on the district webpage. There's a high school adoption webpage. Should be linked in. Where? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So you mentioned, okay, the kids were talking that they really like the modeling.
Yeah.
Instead of the test.
Yeah.
Is there still a test option if they want to show proficiency that way?
So, looking at that idea of having options for assessments is certainly a place we are headed towards with, starting to explore ideas like UDL and things like that, and providing students choice in how they approach their learning and choice in how they express their learning. But that piece would come as part of the implementation cycle. So once we have the curriculum, sitting down with the teachers that are teaching it and saying, okay, what piece works best where, and how are we going to offer students those choices? So we think about implementation as a 3 to 5 year cycle. And I would anticipate those conversations and how are we going to offer students those choices to be part of that implementation cycle.
Okay. And so something like biology, obviously the material hasn't changed, but the standards have. So when were the standards updated?
The Next Generation Science Standards were adopted in Washington State in 2013.
Okay, so it's been some time.
Yeah.
And I think our
They've been around a while.
It's been a while. So we've been teaching to those standards with an old curriculum.
Yeah, our teachers have been working their bums off, pulling things and using what they have as a base, but pulling that into the 21st century and providing students the three-dimensional instruction they deserve.
So the standards are going to be the same, and what I'm getting to, I think, is sometimes when we radically change the way we are assessing students, and you mentioned traditionally marginalized or students who are less than successful historically, by changing to a modeling program, we are not lowering the bar for proficiency.
Honestly, I think modeling raises the bar for proficiency because it's no longer regurgitating a memorized answer.
Right.
You have to really understand what you're talking about to build a complete model. And I know it's really hard to see those models. I wish you could see them like up close. They are so detailed. The amount of, and the thing that I think is so powerful for students is when they get a chance to develop a model like that, the learning is so connected. It's not just a list of facts. They have arrows going everywhere, and how does everything connect, and what's the next thing, and how does that affect me, and how is this connected to my life? I think, and modeling's not the only thing students do for assessments. That's just one of the kind of newer ways to look at it, and one of the shifts in instruction that teachers are really focusing on, so that's why I chose to highlight it.
Okay. And is there any way in that, the preview, can we show some of that, what it looks like, so that parents can understand, or people who are looking at?
Yeah, there's a video on the website that shows all of that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I am, the testimonials video should be, it's not accessible on the website, but I can share it at the event on the 4th. Yeah.
I'd also like to point out that this is assessment.
Yeah.
This is a great piece. I mean, you saw the beginnings of what this looks like at the elementary, and now we need to, as those kids come through the system, they need to be part, and our high school kids need to have access, middle school kids, to the same kind of learning. So they might be doing something similar to this, maybe not this particular subject, but at a, what is a ninth grade appropriate piece. So.
Yeah, and along that K-12 lines perspective, 6 years ago, the district adopted Amplify, which is a much more rich three-dimensional learning science experience for our middle school students. Last year, we adopted STEM Scopes, which is a three-dimensional experience for our K-5 students. Now we got to get the high school the same resources that everybody else has.
My question was really, Natalie's, can we see what this modeling
Yeah.
looks like? Because I'm very curious, and to me, thinking about, are we not ensuring we're not necessarily lowering the bar, but also not understanding that how we are assessing students and asking them to demonstrate their knowledge then doesn't hinder them, in fact, helps them get to where they're going after high school, right? So I know there's been a lot of tectonic shifts, right? Like schools really not requiring SATs, ACTs anymore, moving towards more portfolio-based evaluation. And so I can see something like a model really putting them at an advantage, right? And having that as part of a portfolio, which is what now colleges and is looking for.
Yeah.
But this is all new to me, so I'm very interested to see what this looks like.
I do
and
think sometimes
know how it helps them,
Yeah.
right? Like,
when we think about, adults in our work lives, how do we share evidence of our ideas with our colleagues or our clients or whatever our context is? It's very rarely a single chunk of information, right? That it's connected. There are visual aspects to it. There's lots of those kinds of pieces, and that's the kind of connected thinking that we're supporting students in advancing their skills.
Just a comment that I'm looking at it right here when I click on it.
Oh, good. Good.
So it is accessible by our parents also.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's an open educational resource. It's freely available to anybody with an internet connection.
Okay. Yeah, and it looks like
Yeah.
there's a lot there.
There is a lot. I wouldn't expect anyone to dig in
Right.
and into every nut and bolt. That's why we did include the video on the website as well, because I think the video provides a manageable overview.
Right.
And then folks who really want to dig into the details can.
So our parents can look at it.
Absolutely.
And they can see if it's got embedded sex ed stuff in it and all
Which
that.
it doesn't, unless you consider genetics.
Well, biology. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much. And thanks for presenting so late. I apologize for that.
I'm here.
But we appreciate it. Especially enjoyed the video that was in the middle of the presentation. So thank you.
Yeah.
Next is superintendent's report.
Great job. Thank you all. Well, I just have to say, as a former, I'm not recovering either, as a former science teacher, biology, I am so impressed. OER was something that we only thought of. We would spend lots of time looking at, I'm thinking AP biology, the Campbell's notebook, which is this big, and they're $150, $200. And if you lost them, or if a student lost them, they were very expensive. And just the ability for our biology teachers to be able to do real science with interactive notebooks. I'm just looking at everything that you're doing, and I'm like, that's Fred Hutch Cancer Research Center. That's how scientists think. It's what they want to see. It's how they communicate with each other. And, thinking, having big ideas up there and how everything is interconnected. It's not about ABC tests. You do probably still have to memorize. I'm just thinking my anatomy and phys class where we had to, in college, where I don't even remember what I even had to memorize in terms of, origin and insertion and muscles and nerves and all of that. But the students now have such the ability to have this 3D possibility. So I'm very excited, and I would love to be invited in to see it. The board, I'm pretty impressed. So I'm pretty impressed with the biology. The second thing I have to say is I'm very impressed with working force educators that say this isn't good enough for us, and we're going to go back to the board to figure out which chemistry and which physics we're going to give our kids. So I really appreciate a system that's going to push hard and get the best. So with that, I didn't know I was going to say all that, but it's true. So invite me out. I would love to, especially if you need help with the electrophoresis or anything like that. I love to load gels for you. and make any of that. That is genetics. That's genetics. So I know they're laughing because it's a lot of work. The science teachers do a ton of work when they're doing DNA stuff. I just wanted to say really quick, few things. Strategic plan. We are 3 out of the 4 community meetings, and I want to thank all of the community for coming out and also for engaging in thought exchange. That is really going to be a new tool and will give us a lot of data, and we look forward to sharing that data publicly. Second thing, I just wanted to remember when the students were here. It seems like a long time ago, a couple of hours ago, but I just want to thank all of the students and staff that came out in the schools. It's just amazing that, I mean, that little guy, was he a kindergartner doing makerspace or first grade? He was so young, and those students are having access to just amazing schools and staff, and in a community that really values creativity, imagination, and wonder, which is awesome. The sustainability and the recycle, I think that is an area that we could get better in. I know that we filled out the green school applications with multiple schools, and we became green leaders, but where some of the lacking areas was in that real sustainability, and have systems of recycle, systems of like compost piles, systems of, so I know when Patrick went through it with his capital projects folks, there's 3 strands in the green school, so some of it had to do with that area. So I was really excited to see that Kopachuk was kind of taking that, although in a case, but what could we do collectively as a community, as a school community, to minimize waste and to maximize recycling. So just something that just jumped out at me. Had the opportunity to be at the Navy Ball. I learned, what is that, glug? What is that called? Grog. Okay. Okay, I learned that you eat a certain way. There were all these rules, and those of you that are military people, I had never. And so, like how you eat your roll, and then you butter it, and you put the butter down. I saw the kids drink that icky stuff in the middle, and they had to go in and drink it. And then I really read the rules because I didn't want to be called out and have to do that. So that was fascinating, and the kids had so much fun, and they were so appropriate. South Kitsap reached out, and Lakes was also there, but I look forward to us having our own. So enough of that. Had the opportunity to meet with my superintendent student advisory group, which is student voice. Students from each grade band have been identified to be as diverse as possible, right? You have kids in band, and you have athletes, and you have ASB, but you also have kids that maybe struggled, especially during the pandemic. We really heard that student voice. Students that were in Running Start and failed and came back to school, but just really, really value that group of students at Peninsula High School this week. They always humble me in what they talk about. They humble me when they, talk about their concerns, because they're living that life. And they gave really good feedback with the strategic plan. They're pretty smart, so I just wanted to share that. And lastly, our Norwegian delegation that we went to, it seems like forever ago, but it was within the last month, with the Gig Harbor delegation as well as the Alaskan delegation. We had the opportunity to attend the Nord University High North Conference, where we learned many, many things that I did not know about in the future technology, as well as we had an opportunity to see preschools in action in Oslo, Lillehammer, and Buda. And we do have some presentations. I've put together a few presentations. Natalie and I presented to the learning support team. But if it's something that the board would like us to do, maybe the 3 of us could do. I have a couple presentations that we could do for the board, with the board, or during a study session if you're interested. And and number 6, there's current legislation that ties to both our strategic plan, but also what we saw in Norway, specifically around the 5th to 6th grade outdoor school, will be funded. That'll be through a grant proposal, but it's funded at $10 million, so that's significant. So we're going to go after that grant. I don't know exactly what the criteria is, but looking forward to that. So that was just recently passed in the state legislation. Also electric buses, both the investigation of and the purchase of. So I'm looking forward to that, and that ties directly to what we saw in Norway. And also collaborating with others around the schools and industry. So with that, the only last thing that I want to tell you that I discovered yesterday, I met a previous school board member who, and I don't know this to be true, so if it's not true, I apologize, but I think it is, that there was an aviation program back in 2004 through 2007. Is that correct? And it lasted 3 years. So I would assume that that was grant funded, and then the grant went away. So I need to learn more about that, but it sounds like it's a revisit instead of a brand new. So anyway, looking forward to that. Thanks.
Thank you. Chuck, you want to start? You have any comments?
Yeah, it's late. I'll be quick. Just so everyone on the board knows sort of what I've been doing. So I'm really excited that I was able to participate in the Inclusionary Practices Committee. So I've had one meeting, and I was sort of fire hydrant in the face with acronyms, but the one that kept coming up over and over was UDL, and we heard it a whole bunch tonight. So I'm looking forward to actually learning what that means and how it's going to impact all of us, and being able to share that, and hopefully we'll get to learn more about that as a board as it's, you know, coming to our district. And then the second one is I was able to, thanks to Superintendent Barr, I'm really excited about being invited to participate in a statewide school construction committee assignment as a representative of WASDA, and as a to report to and just really to knowledge share across the state with what's going on with school construction. And that's everything from bond passages to code impacts to new code adoptions to schools to, you know, what are things that are working well in some places and not working well in others. So it was a long one, but it was interesting, 4-hour Zoom. But quick takeaway from that, one more shout out to how fortunate we are to have passed our bond in 2019, because over and over hearing about construction escalation across the state upwards of 10%, and you can't even budget right now for projects, and just how fortunate we are to have passed and then accelerated our timeline and built our schools, because there are districts out there who are really stuck right now. They pass bonds and now they can't build their schools because they can't afford them. So go Peninsula. That's all.
Thank you. Natalie?
I'll be brief, believe it or not, skip over. I wanted to thank Aaron for inviting me to come to the Navy Ball as well. I will echo what Creston said, it was amazing. And I think I have vowed I'm not going to cry anymore in school board meetings or in school board related events, because I think it just is a testament to how emotional we are about the kids that we serve. But there was one moment when I think Creston, Aaron, and I were watching the kids dancing together and doing the conga line and having a great time that we all got a little emotional. It's been some years since they've been able to do that, and I think it was okay. Thank you. A realized dream that this group has come together and made such tight friendship. Okay.
I think that's a sign that it's time to be done. So I also just want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and all those who spoke earlier and had to leave, which, again, we appreciate your input, super valuable, and to that, and the community meetings that have been really, really cool for us to just hear from people their specific ideas. And so, again, I encourage everybody who's watching and who's here to go on Thought Exchange, and because we do love especially the more specific the idea, the better. So Thanks, everyone. And with that, we will adjourn at 9:35.